Part 233. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2327. Jia Yan felt the will and determination of the three domain masters, and his heart was slightly moved. You know, even if it were him, he wouldn't dare to believe in other people's unproven paths, but these three people actually made a decision after following him for so long. Okay, but you can also see that my yin and yang dao is actually just a shallow entry. I can quit anytime and anywhere. I just need to spend a certain amount of time to rebuild the ordinary road. So if you really do this, you will not, it will have a great impact, and I welcome senior territory lords to come and practice my yin and yang dao. Jia Yan breathed out a sigh of relief, and there was a trace of excitement in his compound eyes. Will his yin and yang dao finally have the first batch of domain lord practitioners? Even he himself is not sure whether the current cultivation possibilities of yin yang dao are suitable for the territory lord, but there are people who trust him and come to practice yin yang dao. This is something that Jia Yan is very pleased with and feels has a long way to go. Of course, the three seniors are definitely not just looking after Jia Yan, but because the combat power of Jia Yan's 5,000 troops is really the envy of others. If they grasp the first-hand advantage, if Jia Yan develops it again in the future without the ability to command 10,000 people or even an army of 20,000 people, then just thinking about it made their blood boil, so this first wave of investment was somewhat meaningful. When the matter was settled, the situation became much simpler. The three domain masters took turns to take command of Jia Yan's troops of 5,000 people. However, they have just started, and naturally they need a certain amount of time of training and observation. The most important key is that they need to convert part of the energy into yin and yang dao. The territory lords who knew this were all dumbfounded and shocked. After all, ordinary territory lords definitely cherish their feathers. Everyone will protect themselves well before they understand the truth. Even if Jia Yan's training method achieves good results on the front line, none of them really makes up his mind. Unexpectedly, this matter was snatched away by the three guarding domain masters around Jia Yan. How could they be so bold? However, there are also many domain lord creatures who quickly understood the core level, that is, Jia Yan has the region lord appearance. If nothing else, Jia Yan must be majoring in his own yin and yang dao. Since he can pass the yin and yang dao cultivating to the level of a territory lord means that his yin and yang dao is absolutely in line with the territory lord's cultivation. That's why the three guarding the territory lord made up their minds. As a result, many domain owners beat their chests and regretted it to death. If they had known, they would catch up and sign up for the 5,000 troops. But of course, the position was occupied, but Jia Yan wanted to train more troops than these two, so a large number of domain masters started to think carefully. The specific details of overt and covert fighting, or observation and hesitation, are not cumbersome. In short, some people are looking for Jia Yan every day, which is almost annoying him. But during this busy time, a few things seemed to sound an alarm for all Jia Yan and all the domain masters. That was a surprise attack, coming in front of a large number of territory lords. The first time was in the office where Jia Yan was resting. No one knew when an enemy at the top of intermediate galaxy entered the room. When he rushed out, even Jia Yan didn't react immediately. It was obvious that he was a peak mid-level star who was good at sneak attacks and assassinations. Fortunately, just when he was about to succeed, the commander-in-chief of this region appeared. After one blow, he glanced at Jia Yan, and then disappeared like a blurry after-image. The commander-in-chief of this region is a strong man who is proficient in counter-assassination, and he can be the commander-in-chief of the region. He is definitely the top-level existence among ordinary domain masters, so he has this strength. Not surprising at all. After this incident occurred, Jia Yan's security measures were further strengthened. But the accident still happened. This second time was even more exaggerated than the first time because it happened in front of a large number of territory lords. When Jia Yan was commanding the troops and conducting exercises of the Red and Blue Army, with the three domain masters accompanying him, and everyone thought it was very safe in this situation, there were 5 seemingly ordinary people in the training team. The galaxy-level soldiers seemed to explode suddenly, and their strength surged to the domain lord level. They all turned into a blur and rushed towards Jia Yan's location. This scene made everyone present feel extremely shocked, and it felt very unreal. Not to mention that there are more than 10 or 20 regional lords from all major regions coming to observe, which is almost like a dragon's pond and a tiger's den. It is just that the enemy has come to the 5 major regional lords in one breath. It is as if a king bomb has come directly in the hinterland of the master's power. Aren't you worried about your own safety? Directly asking the 5 major domain lords to take action would be too generous. Of course, not many people thought of so many people at the first moment of the incident, but more of them were in shock and unexpectedly temporarily stuck. Even Jia Yan was in such a situation for a while, and he was a peak mid-level star. Even if he was a leader among the top mid-level stars, he was still weak. Against the joint attack of the 5 major domain lords, it's impossible to react at all. The opponent's attack time, angle, and various calculations all seemed calculated. Even the regional commander-in-chief, who had previously killed the mid-level assassin in the galaxy with one strike, had no time to rush over. But the confident attack of these 5 domain lords was still a Waterloo. What came over were 4 strange-looking territory lords. Before they appeared, most of the territory lords present probably didn't even notice. But unfortunately, just after the 5 sneak attack domain lords appeared, they rushed to the center of the battle circle as quickly as ghosts. Boom! The earth-shattering explosion caused Jia Yan to lose all his senses in an instant. At that moment, the only thought in his mind was, "Mom, the Earth is too dangerous. I want to go back to Mars." It was only today that Jia Yan, who seemed to have everything going smoothly among the masters and became famous instantly, truly understood the dangers in the North Star and how terrifying the real battle for the domain masters was. And what the hell, the water in the territory lord is too deep. The 4 sudden territory lords who were fighting at the scene seemed to be completely different species from the territory lords that Jia Yan had known before. They fought against the 5 territory lords together, and even the other territory lords on the sidelines did not dare to approach. The 3 guarding territory lords around Jia Yan, who were territory lords after all, reacted at this moment, picked up Jia Yan, who was protected by the 4 sudden territory lords, and flew back violently. It is not easy for them to intervene in such a battle, but they can still escape with a galaxy-level junior. You dare to come to my district several times to cause trouble. You really don't take me seriously. Among all the regional lords, the commander-in-chief of this region, after being stunned for a moment, looked extremely ugly. Then he took a step forward and stepped in front of one of the 5 enemy regional lords pretending to be soldiers. Attack. He said that he was talking grandly, but when he actually fought, he could only tie with one of them. At least Jia Yan couldn't see what advantage he had. The situation suddenly became 5 versus 5, and the fight was earth-shattering. The fluctuation of energy made even Jia Yan standing here feel frightened. "Senior, what level of battle is this?" he said in horror. "Senior Territory Lord's primary level, or a new Territory Lord's combat type existence strength. In other words, if you have the ability to become a Territory Lord, as long as you are still a combat type, the first step is likely to be at their level. Much stronger than ordinary domain lords like us." The senior territory lords beside Jia Yan responded to Jia Yan as if they were extremely bitter. Jia Yan looked at the group of territory lords around him. Although there were a few who were eager to try, no one actually took action because they were afraid of being accidentally injured by such a battle. Of course, This also depends on the situation, and our side is not at a big disadvantage. Otherwise, if there are so many territory lords present, if they really go up to help, the 5 territory lords will not get a good deal. The result of this battle was just as Jia Yan had determined from the beginning. When the battle started, the enemy did not kill him, but no one could leave their 5 domain masters. After causing accidental injuries to nearly 1,000 soldiers from Jia Yan's army, the 5 raiders were driven away by the 4 territorial lords who suddenly appeared and the regional commander-in-chief. However, they were only driven away, and no one gained the upper hand. If they had not taken into account that this is the base of the master's military camp, and there are still many methods that have not been used, I am afraid they would have dared to continue fighting. Jia Yan, please rest assured. I have never let up on your security. I have never let up on my control. Keep this in mind and cultivate usable soldiers. The 4 domain lords, after speaking so angrily to Jia Yan, suddenly swayed and disappeared as when they came. Be careful. Can I quit now? It's a bit scary. Jia Yan was silent. After seeing the battle between the 5 senior domain lords, or new domain lord combat types, he suddenly understood that his own safety seemed to be surrounded by a group of masters and ordinary domain lords. Very safe, but in fact, it is not like that at all. The territory lord is still the territory lord, and he is still an existence that he cannot transcend and cannot imagine. What kind of joint tactics of Jia Yan's team, what kind of galaxy-level joint teams, what kind of cross-level battles, they are completely crushed in front of this kind of domain lord. After this second attack, Jia Yan suffered 2 more attacks, such as poisoning and explosive weapons against the domain lord. Fortunately, his security became more and more alarming and tight, so no one was surprised. Risk. But every time, as long as he was unlucky, he would die. From the perspective of the person involved, Jia Yan, this was the clearest thing. Unexpectedly, in the eyes of truly powerful domain masters, I am still not too powerful. If we hadn't joined forces with cheap and economical tactics to quickly and massively increase the overall strength of the master's force, I'm afraid that even if the master's force knew what I was capable of, he won't pay much attention to me either. The appearance of the 5,000 troops may be the key point for things to turn around. Of course, it is also the reason why the enemy regards Jia Yan as a more important threat and even sends a truly powerful domain lord to attack. If the powerful domain lord is as strong as the one who fought that day, in fact, if the 5,000 troops did not appear, I am afraid that neither the enemy nor our side will be able to improve the overall power of a master like Jia Yan. Strong people have too many interests. Jia Yan can quickly increase the strength of the master's force army, but he is limited by the fact that he can train an army of 2,000 or 2,000 by himself, and the strongest of this army is only as good as the weakest ordinary domain lord. That threat, to be honest, it wasn't too scary. At least at that time, there were many things much higher than the Jia Yan sequence that deserved the enemy's attention. However, when the enemy's stronger domain lord and assassination methods appeared, indicating that Jia Yan's army of 5,000 men appeared, this made the enemy pay more attention to him, and also believed that he had a certain possibility to kill him. It will cause variables in the future war situation. Jia Yan, you understand, in fact, what we did before was just a small episode in the entire general war, not even a small episode. When the 5 enemy territory lords come, I'm afraid they won't deal with you specifically. When doing other tasks, I will assassinate you for a look. If it succeeds, they will not suffer any big losses. They will just be hunted for a period of time. In this large area, which can be regarded as a border, no one can stop them at all. I understand. Oh, what do you understand? Become a territory lord as soon as possible, and then leave the North Star. Well, on this day, the lord of the Black Bear territory who came to Jia Yan to talk to him, was disturbed by Jia Yan's words and went to Shiyu and immediately choked. No, you have misunderstood. What I mean is that you should pay more attention to safety, and then try to curry favor with the more powerful territory lords, and then it is possible to be promoted to territory lord. Naturally, it would be better, but you have just become a territory lord. At least dozens or hundreds of years, right? During these times, someone should always take care of you. But unexpectedly, his words were exchanged for Jia Yan's declaration of leaving. Jia Yan, this is still far away. It will take at least tens or hundreds of years for you to become a territory lord. I am talking about this period of time. You must always think carefully about your own safety. We have also been training your yin and yang in the past few days. You said it, we are still trying to see if we can join forces. If we can join forces, maybe there will be another domain master with the same strength as that day. We don't hide this, we just want you to take advantage of it. If we are strong, you will too. It's safe. Another point is that I have communicated with the commander-in-chief of this region. He promised to meet you a few times and give you guidance. At the same time, you must have a good relationship with him. In this way, next time if there is another similar attack, if the four friends are not here, he might as well come up with something to save you. I see. Jia Yan nodded seriously. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2328. He naturally understands this kind of thing, and he also understands the words of the Black Bear territory lord. Isn't it just asking him to flatter the somewhat cold-faced regional commander? The second thing is the Black Bear territory lord and the others. Selfishly, since they have already begun to learn Jia Yan's yin and yang Tao, they want Jia Yan to teach more. If they can make the three major domain masters have the possibility of joining forces, then for them, it is simply what a huge surprise. After all, once they join forces, judging from the improvement of Yin-Yang Dao's combined combat effectiveness and experience, it is possible for them to become as powerful as the commander of the region. In fact, Jia Yan did the same thing. In the following days, he had more contact and communication with the commander-in-chief of this region, and even gained his favor. In this way, if there is still no matter what the danger, he must be more dedicated to his duties. The three Guardian Domain Masters have also received Jia Yan's nearly decrypted Yin-Yang Dao teachings, but Jia Yan has agreed not to let them reveal it so quickly. After all, his Yin-Yang Dao has been revealed so much when teaching ordinary troops. If it were more, it would have attracted combat-level domain lords to attack. If it were more powerful, there would probably be more trouble. It seemed to be going smoothly, but no one knew that the conversation between Jia Yan and the Black Bear territory lord was regarded as a joke by the other party, but it was not a lie. This northern superstar is beginning to be in danger, and I don't understand the rules of conduct, so I am caught in an epic battle between one force and several major forces. In this case, even if I am promoted to territory lord, even after promotion, I will be a fighter. The most powerful territory lord is probably only at the level of the 5 incoming territory lords that day, so, if I really get my wish and use the power of the master to be promoted to territory lord, why don't I leave? There are so many superstars. Well, I don't have to stay in the northern superstar. Even if I change to another place in the northern superstar that's hundreds of millions, billions, or tens of billions of kilometers away, it's better than this crumbling place of power, okay. So, as long as I use the power of the master to be promoted to the territory lord, the first thing I should do is to escape from this place no matter what. If I leave behind the joint strategy, I can be considered worthy of them. That's what Jia Yan planned. There was nothing he could do. Who made him see clearly that powerful territory lords were not even at the top level among junior territory lords? They were so terrifying that they were much stronger than ordinary territory lords. His strong sense of insecurity made him I don't believe it at all. Even if I get promoted, I will be able to conquer everything. In this case, it is better to stay away from danger. Anyway, the relationship with the master's power is not that deep, they are just using each other. The next progress seems to be determined because Jia Yan's purpose has become clearer. When Jia Yan asked the 3 territory lords to escort and take over the command of the 5,000 troops, Jia Yan really wanted to give them some help, but he never expected that he would exchange yin and yang Tao with the 3 territory lords and teach them more knowledge. As a high-level yin-yang Dao, the fact that the territory lord can also enter the yin-yang Dao has actually benefited him a lot. Because they are domain lords after all, every question they ask is extremely in-depth and goes straight to the core. Although it is not that Jia Yan cannot answer it, there are quite a few. Although Jia Yan has also handled it well, there were no important points that they were too concerned about. In this case, Jia Yan quickly felt the benefits. The best way to learn is to teach others. Jia Yan can teach the 3 major domain masters on the side, and then learn more from their tricky and high-quality questions, and also pay attention to the huge number of core issues that he has also missed. Huh? You said that this energy shock problem is one of the core ways of the domain lord. Yes, I don't know about others, but the core of my great strength lies in shock. I slapped it with my hand. It seemed that I was using my natural power, but in fact it was because I used the power of shock to destroy everything in an instant. It seemed it's like it's destroyed by force, but actually everyone who has fought against me knows that I use concussive force. When the topic of shock came up in conversation one day, and the Black Bear Territory Master told Jia Yan that his way as a Territory Master was to take the path of shock, Jia Yan was slightly startled. This is the first time I know what the Black Bear Territory Lord's way is, but now it is a little different. He still uses shocks. Between the shocks, there is an added flavor of yin and yang Dao, although Jia Yan still doesn't have it. He was taught too much yin-yang Dao, and his talent in yin-yang Dao was average, so he couldn't use Jia Yan's positive and negative power to attack, but when he slapped, his 2 palms used positive and negative power plus concussive force, which was more powerful than Jia Yan's. In the past, he seemed to be slightly stronger. This was because he had just learned on Maido not long ago. I see, shock is also one of the keys. Jia Yan pondered for a while. There seemed to be some key clue passing through his mind, but Jia Yan failed to grasp it, which made him regretful. Jia Yan, are you accelerating your promotion recently? Suddenly, the Black Bear Territory Lord beside Jia Yan asked this question silently. Jia Yan's efforts are real and can be seen by everyone, but no one thinks that he has done something wrong. It is natural for people who even appear to be the Territory Lord to want to reach the Territory Lord quickly. After all, once the Territory Lord arrives, it will undergo earth-shaking changes. Who doesn't want to hurry up? Yes, I want to reach the Territory Lord as soon as possible. Now there are such powerful Territory Lords assassinating me. If I can't reach the Territory Lord, wouldn't it be a bit dangerous? Jia Yan looked careless and dealt with it with a smile. He would never say that when he arrived at the Territory Lord, the first thing he did was to use the Territory Lord's ability to freely enter and exit the North Star to fly away and leave the 4 battle places of the Master's forces. Otherwise, those from other forces, knowing that he, the founder of the Jia Yan force, has reached the strength of a domain lord, and may develop joint combat skills between domain lords in the future, then he will definitely assassinate himself at any cost. As for whether he will come back in the future, it depends on his future strength. At least, Jia Yan will not come back until he reaches the junior and senior level of domain lord. Of course, if he leaves the Master's land and wants to go to other superstars, or to places farther away in the North Star to improve his strength, that is also possible. However, if Jia Yan has just been promoted to Territory Lord, he will definitely be tired for a while. Period. He wanted to walk around. Anyway, in the entire galaxy, the existence of territory lord strength, except in the four major giants such as the North Superstar, must be walking sideways. There are so many senior territory lords or intermediate territory lords, generally no matter where they go, even if in the central star field of the Milky Way, where the territory lords are as numerous as dogs, the North Star is not so dangerous. Of course, that's just a thought. Today's Jia Yan still focuses on improving his strength first. However, with Jia Yan's emotions, although it is difficult for others to see what he is planning, for the territory lord, it is still possible to see a slight change, so the black bear territory lord next to Jia Yan, silently looked at the giant mosquito, seeming to have an idea. Of course, this is just an episode. Under normal circumstances, no one cares about others. What's more, if one day, the master's building is going to collapse, the three guards of Black Bear will probably choose to leave immediately. They are the domain masters. Even in the North Star, they can still live a good life in general. Yes, it is impossible to foolishly accompany the master's forces to death. That's what they think. They think big changes won't happen so quickly. But the problem is that this matter is not as simple as everyone imagines. Everything, after the last time the 5 enemy senior level domain lords attacked Jia Yan, it was like a snowball and became like a collapse. It turned out that the real mission of the 5 great domain lords was to sneak attack on a famous regional commander known as the Northern Passage. The name of that area doesn't matter anymore. In short, the area where it exists is very close to the current area where Jia Yan is located. The other party came to attack Jia Yan after they had already assassinated the leader of that area. The two of them, the time between them was even less than a day, so at that time, the shock in the large area over there had not had time to spread. After that, Jia Yan began to formally train the guards of the 3 domain masters, and began to verify each other. After the theoretical ability of Yin and Yang Dao further improved by leaps and bounds, the matter began to ferment. At that time, there were quite a few territory lords who were shocked to their cores. At first, Jia Yan didn't know why, but when he unfolded the map of the master's power, especially on the internet, and was pointed out by other domain owners, and understood the major passes of the master's power, he understood the seriousness of the matter. If we use the Earth China as an analogy, the region that was attacked by the commander of the region is equivalent to the Jiaiguan or Shanhaiguan of China. This is an extremely important geographical location, and it is also the most important power of the entire controller. Shaoqiuimen region. Logically speaking, this area was heavily guarded, and the commander himself was naturally not weak. Unexpectedly, he succeeded despite the unknown plan of the 5 domain lords to attack. He didn't die because he was too strong, but he was seriously injured. No one knew how serious the injury was, but it was definitely serious. Because of this incident, the entire north, that is, the large area where Jia Yan and the others are located, is in panic. You must know that except for that large area, the entire north includes the large area where Jia Yan and the others are located, as well as the grassland area beyond. District, Yukio District, Binxiu District, and more than 30 districts. Now the commander of the most important pass in the northern district was attacked. That district was in turmoil. How could they remain so calm? But that's not all. Just when Jia Yan and the others began to formally speed up the training of the Yin and Yang Dao troops, the enemy's backup plan began. It doesn't matter why the assassination organization joined forces with the surrounding forces to attack the master's forces. In short, they joined forces, and the assassination organization's several attempts have yielded good results. Except for Jia Yan, who suffered several losses, other times, including the most important assassination of the commander-in-chief of the Guan Pass region, achieved good results. Therefore, this assassin organization openly announced that it has certain mastery. He then joined the so-called Allied forces to destroy the Masters and invaded the land of the Masters' forces from another gate in the north. In the grassland war zone far away from the country gate, there was also a force composed of 3 domain lords, which attacked the grassland troops with great momentum. The clever Giant Tree Senior and Octopus Senior did not even fight in succession, and directly let the troops know the wind runs away, and there is no need to resist. Because they were already having a huge headache when they resisted the original enemy. Last time, they teamed up with Jia Yan and others to kill an enemy territory lord. This was an explosion of the small universe. In fact, if they continued to fight, the situation would not be much different. Many, the grassland troops without foreign aid turned into resistance after the enemy initially supported a small force. Now that more troops are coming, it's a no-brainer. They don't want to leave their own bodies here, so they have no choice but to escape. Well, if there is chaos, the grassland will definitely not be able to be defended. Even this vast northern land, I don't know if it can be defended. Escape. It doesn't matter whether he can hold it or not. The master is so powerful. How can he be captured by them in one fell swoop? If we have 10 more Jia Yan troops, maybe it will be helpful. Jia Yan troops are really powerful. 10 more troops. Jia Yan has been busy for more than half a year to teach a few Jia Yan troops. This does not necessarily guarantee that each of them will be that strong. It would be better if he was given another 10 years. Unfortunately, half a year many. When the 2 domain masters ran away, they were not too embarrassed, because the enemy did not come to pursue them, so they saved some face. But on the other side of the ice and snow, a small demon figure was not doing so well. Probably because I know it, in the army of the Master's forces on the land of ice and snow, there is a little princess of the Master's family, which is of great significance. Therefore, the strong men who came here as reinforcements from the enemy army have 5 major domain lords, plus they are already on the land of ice and snow. The 3 major domain lords confronting the Master's forces turned into 8 major domain lords in one breath, fighting against the 3 major domain lords of the Master's forces. The chase became very fierce. The little devil ran away crying, and even used the secret treasure given by her family to barely escape the enemy's pursuit. The only problem is that the Fox Territory Lord who has been following her has stayed in the ice and snow land forever. Not even all the ice and snow troops are following the little princess, only a few troop commanders are following her. She was bloody all the way and finally escaped from the rotten war zone in this land of ice and snow. Hurry up and run away. We can't let Grandpa's sacrifice be in vain. I want to go home and ask my dad to beat them and avenge Grandpa. The master, Sela, was about to burst into tears, but her return home words made the subordinates on the side slightly shocked, and then someone stopped her. Your Highness, you want to go back, but the enemy must be waiting on the main road when we return. We can't take the main road. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2329. Yes, the northern pass is blocked by them. It may be fine for ordinary troops and soldiers to pass, but if important people pass by, they will definitely be attacked by some enemies. In this way, Princess, we will go down the Yukio area until we reach the area where Jia Yan is located. I remember that there is a pass there that is not too commonly used. Although the road will be slower and there may be dangers. But it's better than using the usual pass entrance. Jia Yan? As if hearing some life-saving straw, the little devil princess nodded vigorously and wiped her tears. Yes, Jia Yan troops are very powerful. One unit can defeat a domain lord. If we go over, the enemy will definitely not be able to catch up. This behavior of the little Princess Sela brought disaster to several major areas where she fled to. Originally, when the enemy invaded most of the northern areas, they should have rushed directly to the pass area where people were panicking, directly broke through the northern checkpoints leading to the hinterland of the Master's influence, and then turned around to slowly conquer other Master's forces. It's right to be from a large area. But what I never expected was that because the value of such a little princess was too high, the main force invaded the pass area according to the original plan, but another smaller force was separated. The little devil princess was followed on the road, chasing her. So Jia Yan, who seemed to be teaching two 5,000-strong Jia Yan troops in the rear area, was actually extremely solemn when he read this information. That's why he decided to reach the territory lord as soon as possible. Then he rushed out of the North Star without looking back. Under such a battle, let alone that he was not promoted to territory lord, even if he was promoted successfully, there would be no chance of causing any trouble. The North Superstar is the North Superstar. Once a war breaks out, it will be like a huge wave. Even the ordinary territory lord has no chance of stopping it. The troops from Yukio region are here. Your Highness, little princess, don't worry. And one day, when Jia Yan was in the rear, still millions of kilometers away from the war, the Yukio region, which was adjacent to the grassland troops, finally had Qiu Chan as the commander-in-chief and led the entire Yukio region. The troops, as well as the 2,000-man Jia Yan troops who had previously defeated the enemy, met Her Royal Highness the Little Princess, who had been on the run for several days, at the border between the Yukio region and the grassland region. Wow, 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 it's one of our own, everyone, cheer up, Weavua, there's no one left, they're all dead, Weavua, there's no one left. The little devil originally wanted to say hello to the followers behind him, but then he realized that there were two followers behind him. Since they had to help her escape, there were already fewer and fewer people. Now she was the only one who saw Yukio's troops. Just one. Yukio's troops and Jia Yan's troops have stepped forward to assist Her Royal Highness the Princess. Today is the day of bloody battle for our Yukio troops. Kill. A mighty force of 100,000 Yukio troops came up behind the little princess. That was more than twice as many enemy troops as Yukio's 100,000 troops. 100,000 versus 200,000, even Jia Yan's troops had no chance of causing a storm. This war made the entire northern land see the disparity and feel a fear called doomsday. 80,000 of the 100,000 master troops were wiped out. Commander Qiu Chan was seriously injured and barely took away the master princess. At the end of this battle, even if 100,000 troops were scattered and reorganized from various places, the total number of surrenders and deaths reached 60,000. Some of the 40,000 escaping troops were no longer under control. In the land of the rulers, many formed an organization and fled from the rulers' forces. Even if they fled to other areas of influence and became bandits, they were unwilling to return to the turbulent rulers' forces. The enemy had 200,000 troops, and the maximum loss in this battle was only 30,000. With their numerical advantage, they were completely overwhelmed and wiped out the main force of Yukio region. However, it is not that easy for them to annex the Yukio region in one fell swoop. This is probably the biggest problem in the entire era of interstellar strong men, that is, there will be a large number of wild strong men in the captured areas, and the number may be so large that the troops will despair. Different from the vast and sparsely populated grassland areas, although the Yukio area also has many areas with sparse intelligent creatures, the total population is still shockingly terrifying. There are tens of millions of people, and there are countless strong people in them. Even the territory lords had at least as many troops as the 100,000 troops dispatched by the Yukio region, which took a lot of time to devour and digest. Of course, compared to the well-trained army of 200,000, Tens of millions of ordinary strong creatures that have not been trained and have no sense of unity at all will not be too much trouble. Let's say it's thousands. 1. There are not too many powerful people who actually reach the star level or above, so as long as it takes a certain amount of time or bloody means, the Yukio area can be stabilized at a considerable cost. The Yukio region fell. Yes, there is no chance in this battle. Where is Jia Yan's troops? Didn't they fight against a domain lord before? Jia Yan's troops in Yukio region. The whole army was wiped out. They were worthy of their trump card and fought to the last soldier. After the commander personally killed several of the enemy's mid-level peak warriors in the galaxy, he was killed by a domain lord. Both the enemy and ourselves faced Jia Yan. All the 2,000 troops expressed their admiration for the performance. It's still glorious in defeat. On this day, Jia Yan heard the news about the fall of Yukio region, and he was silent for a long time. He couldn't figure out what his mentality was, especially after knowing that the first batch of Jia Yan's troops he had taught had been wiped out in this battle. He felt a little irritable for no reason. To be honest, my relationship with them is not very good. There is no need to feel bad because of such a group of trained soldiers. But where does this discomfort come from, Sci? Jia Yan was helpless. In fact, he knew in his heart that although he said he didn't care much about others, in fact he was still a very emotional person. In the early stages of his life's evolution, many decisions were made based on emotions. Now, although there has been some change, but when it is the turn of similar events, emotional feelings will arise again. Those soldiers in Jia Yan's unit were the first ones he started formal training. To be honest, after comparing the batch that was better trained, Jia Yan was more emotionally invested. Even many of their names, he can call it out. Now that he saw the news that their entire army had been annihilated, it was still the same troops that had brought glory to him before. Although Jia Yan did not express anything, he felt uncomfortable. Forget it, don't think about it so much. What I want to care about right now is how long it will take the enemy to attack this area, and during this period, how did I choose, whether to escape, or to fight, or, should I choose to break through to the domain lord before the enemy attacks this area? Jia Yan knew that it was absolutely impossible for the enemy army to stop advancing. There seemed to be a lot of problems that needed to be solved in the Yukio region, but an army was an army. It was like an army with cold weapons in ancient China. Even if it was pulled out, it is said that the combat effectiveness of each soldier is not much better than that of ordinary people, but 2,000 to 3,000 troops can control a city with a population of tens or millions, mainly because ordinary people cannot be large-scale. The opponents of the army do not have a united mentality. It is unrealistic to expect ordinary strong men to be able to withstand the army. Moreover, it is just a change of masters. The powerful one still has a high status. They may not care. There are millions of kilometers between them. It will take a lot of time for them to march slowly. Not to mention the Jiayan troops I have built along the way and the main forces in each major region. Maybe the northern region will a joint army will come out, or the master's forces will have an army out of the past to help in the battle, so there are many variables, and I believe they can't get here so fast. It could be as short as 1 year, or as long as 5 or 6 years, which is much longer than the total time I spent in Beja Superstar. Therefore, during this period of time, it is not impossible for me to attack the territory lord. And precisely because of the war, I can, in some name, stop moving and stay here, which reduces the many troubles and dangers of going out, and allows me to stabilize my mind and slowly study my way as a territory lord. In this region, Jia Yan spread his own voice about the defeat of the Yukio region. He will no longer move the area, or even move back, because he plans to wait for the little Princess Sila in this area, and then do his best to train stronger Jia Yan troops to replace Yu Qiu. The Jiayan troops in the region took revenge. This statement, under the large number of condemnations, righteous indignation, passionate sentiments and other statements from various regions due to the failure of the Yukio District War and the Grassland War, is almost a small wave. Can't do any tricks at all. But for those who are interested, it is a bit surprising. Jia Yan, do you really want to stay in this area? You must understand that the masters have the intention to let you return to the northern pass and train the troops in the pass. It will be much safer that way. No need, I'll just stay here. Even if I go to the pass, with the current performance of Jia Yan's troops, the higher-ups won't make it easy for me. I might as well stay here. If I perform well, I won't be able to do anything about the future. I can gain some experience by escaping into the pass. Oh well. Jia Yan's attitude was unexpected by some people. After all, everyone knew that Jia Yan was a newly arrived master of the power, and even an alien visitor who had just arrived in the North Superstar. For him, he had no feelings of hometown. Something like that, so wherever it is safe, it is the right place to retreat to. But if you think about it carefully, Jia Yan's attitude is just like what he said to others. He has high hopes, but his troops, even with the performance of Yu Qiu's troops in the First War, are still insufficient. Yu Qiu's during the war, because the number of people was too small, he could hardly make a big splash, so he temporarily stayed outside the northern region and waited for Jia Yan's troops to perform more powerfully before entering the pass. He must have controlled other forces. Local people will have a better attitude towards Jia Yan. In fact, it is not that Guan Nei has a bad attitude toward Jia Yan. In fact, even in the northern region where they hear news about Jia Yan's troops every day, they originally thought that Jia Yan's troops were magical. During the Yukio War, they realized the so-called Jia Yan's troops, because there are too few people for each training, no matter how amazing they are in that kind of battle, they are like little ants, being overturned by the enemy with just a slap, so their attitude towards Jia Yan has also changed. They became indifferent, and even several large districts originally selected good and well-educated soldiers from farther away and prepared to send them, but after thinking about it, they chose to let these elites stay in their own districts. Why not integrate into the big army? With cooperation, isn't it better than being alone? This kind of thing was something that none of the three guardians who helped Jia Yan expected. Jia Yan, your status in the army seems to have declined. Don't be discouraged. In fact, in the current atmosphere, the entire war zone is filled with various emotions. You are not the only one who has been wronged. I know. On this day, when Jia Yan was training two troops of 5,000 men, the pangolin creature came to Jia Yan and talked to Shuyuan about it calmly. But after Jia Yan finished speaking, he turned his attention to the distance and the Black Bear Territory Lord who was tentatively assigned to him to lead the Blue Army. Senior, I see that you already understand a lot about Yin and Yang Dao. At least in terms of training troops, you are not much worse than me. In this way, I want to cultivate well during this period to see if I can train in the near future. In the next year, if I am promoted to the level of a territory lord, can I leave the troops to you for training for the time being? Huh? Do you want to attack the domain lord? Jia Yan, do you know that in such things as cultivation, haste makes waste? I know, but I still want to try. Faced with Jia Yan's request, the pangolin creature thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, our Yin and Yang Dao is still far behind yours, but as for your method of training troops, we have seen it along the way, and we can still imitate cats and tigers, although the effect will definitely be worse, it won't be too much worse. You can practice hard and we will take care of other things. If you really don't know how, we can ask you. You won't go into seclusion, right? That's for sure. Jia Yan smiled, and then the matter was settled. The entire army suddenly learned that Jia Yan was going to abandon the troops in training and go into seclusion. Everyone was surprised for a while. However, no one had anything to say, because the troops other than Jia Yan's troops had already started guarding, and the domain lords who could speak also left one by two to take care of their own duties, and no one would stay. Here, I stayed with Jia Yan and the others for several months. So no one cares about Jia Yan. Jia Yan got his wish and entered the practice. After only a few days of practice, his practice was interrupted. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2330. What interrupted his cultivation progress was the little master princess who escaped from the rear and narrowly escaped death to this area. She was also the little devil princess in Jia Yan's mouth, the master Sila. Jia Yan, you must train a powerful army to avenge my grandfather, Weavu. My grandfather died miserably, Weavu. The little devil came to Jia Yan to cry and complain, but he only said some childish and petty words. A day later, he urgently moved to a further area, most likely to prepare to pass the already very unstable pass. The large area returns to the hinterland of the master's power. Jia Yan didn't cry because of the appearance of this little guy, nor did he have any big emotional fluctuations. After all, for him, his own cultivation is the first priority, and the little princess is also gone. In other words, in name, in the entire northern land, it seems that there are no people who can suppress it head-on. No one among the commanders and district heads of the major districts said they could control Jia Yan. Even if they did, Jia Yan would give up face, but if he didn't give up face, it would be fine, and no one would ask for trouble. So Jia Yan was even more straightforward. As soon as the little princess walked away, he announced that he had enlightenment and was going to have a small retreat. How dare you go into seclusion, this guy? When they heard the news, Pangolin and the other guards couldn't help but smile bitterly. Fortunately, they don't have to defend Jia Yan so much, because during this period of time, Jia Yan's troops were regarded as not having much effect. Therefore, in the entire northern region, not only our people, but also the enemy seemed they no longer take Jia Yan's troops seriously, let alone the powerful Zishan domain lord who comes to assassinate them, and even ordinary assassinations no longer appear. So they don't need to pay too much attention to Jia Yan. He can retreat if he wants to. They will train Jia Yan's troops themselves. You know, even if others are no longer optimistic about it, these three domain masters have personally become practitioners of Yin and Yang Dao. After transforming part of their own paths into Yin and Yang Dao, they finally saw the unfathomable depth of Yin and Yang Dao, and became more aware of it. Understand that the Jia Yan troops under their control may burst out with more terrifying combat power, so they are still extremely concerned about it. Life is starting to become stable, which is also a good thing for Jia Yan. Even if this stability represents a greater crisis, he has no choice. Boom boom boom. In the training room he chose, Jia Yan silently looked at the supplies in front of him. I don't know how many minerals, energy stones with antimatter properties, and even a few star core fragments given to me by the territory lords. In addition, the bodies of the two territory lords after their death, as well as a large amount of territory lord knowledge that I have recorded, and including my own understanding of the way of the territory lord, these are the capital that I have the courage to retreat now. Not to mention that Jia Yan has already mastered the path of a territory lord, but it is almost the same. After encountering so many territory lords, chatting with so many territory lords, and understanding all the messy information from their promotions and insights, it has given him a weird route. In this northern giant star, there seems to be a hand that controls the path of all territorial lords in existence. No, it should be said that it is above the galaxy level. It seems that there is already such a hand. It is not right. It may even be below the galaxy level. This hand exists. Is it a silk thread? Jia Yan thought of the so-called silk thread he saw, and also recalled the way he was controlled by the silk thread when he was assisting the promoted old creature in the Peace Star territory. He understood yin and yang, that the existence that hindered the advancement of the entire galaxy's central star field, was probably an existence that might have reached its limit. Galaxy high-level powerhouse. Jia Yan was silent for a moment, then shook his head. The high-level existences of the galaxy, even in the central star field in the center of the galaxy, even among the four giant stars that suppress the entire galaxy, are terrifying existences that are invisible to the dragons. They are like gods. Even if they are close to the domain lord, high-level territory lords and mid-level peak powerhouses worship them. No one would even think that this kind of existence would really exist. Of course, at least in the North Star, everyone knows that high-level territory lords exist, but no one can say for sure how strong they are. If such a being wants to do something to hinder the development of the entire galaxy, or even hinder the development of the powerful civilization of the yin and yang system, then I have no way to do it, because this is simply not someone I can fight against. But, at least I had the previous method to deal with this kind of existence, and that was to cut off the thread. Jia Yan's strength is obvious to all, and it is different from the ordinary cosmic cultivation system. His yin and yang dao is like incompatible energy, entangled with the thread, but distinct. I can tear it off, but he seems to just want to get a share of my promotion, and maybe help me a little when I get promoted, so this kind of power seems to complement each other, and other domain lords may also have it. I discovered it, but turned a blind eye, or regarded it as part of my own strength, but I can't. The energy composition between me and his is too different. If I let it outside my body, this has hindered my path to becoming a territory lord. Jia Yan made a decision, and the first thing to do was to cut off this thread. Buzz. At the beginning of the retreat, he resolutely took action on this thread. Using the yin and yang dao and his subspace talent, Jia Yan penetrated his foot into a space that looked like subspace but not quite like it, and suddenly cut it off with one foot. Groan. There was a soft groan in the space, but the expected breaking sound was not heard. Huh? Why didn't it break? It seems to exist at the angle between subspace and normal space, but it's not actually in this kind of space, could it be? Jia Yan was slightly startled, and then he once again came up with another feeling that he had not experienced for a long time. That was the feeling when he was in the giant world, realizing the other side of the world. This realization was actually of great help to his yin and yang dao. Because of this realization, he made a great breakthrough, especially on the yin-yang road. Many domain owners ask Jia Yan, "Have you ever been to another counter world?" In fact, he has really been there, and his travels to that world will give him many insights and new understandings of Onmyoji from time to time. At this moment, he used that feeling again. Although it was absolutely impossible for his body to enter that world, if the silk thread was related to that world as he expected, then... Puff. Very crisp sound. Jia Yan saw that the silk thread that was as thick as a human finger on earth was suddenly cut off by his own foot. The whole world shook slightly. In an extremely distant place, it was impossible to say whether it actually existed or not. A weird creature opened its eyes in an instant. This little guy again, interesting. The creature's indifferent gaze seemed to see Jia Yan, who was living in the northern giant star, through the endless space. But he had no intention of pursuing it, and silently closed his eyes again. And around him, it was like being wrapped in lines, endless lines extending from his side to far away, as if connecting countless creatures. Jia Yan didn't know about this, but he could predict it. No one paid attention to me. It was like this last time. It must be the same. There must be many domain owners who can see this kind of thread. Although it is difficult to cut it off, there are various ways to do it. There must be a chance to cut it off. It broke, so more people cut it off, and they must have gotten used to the existence of the thread. Jia Yan looked at the distance of the training room calmly, as if he had seen through the endless space and saw something. But people really saw through it, he was just pretending. After pretending for a while, he finally realized whether he was any different without the thread. It doesn't seem to be any different. After thinking for a while, Jia Yan finally smiled bitterly. I didn't feel that my body had become as light as a swallow, nor did I feel any explosion of inspiration, nor did I feel that my strength suddenly improved by leaps and bounds. It seems like that thread doesn't have much impact on me. Yes, I have known for a long time that this kind of silk thread can even promote the speed of level understanding of the strong and make faster breakthroughs. It is only after the domain master that there may be a slight restriction. Generally speaking, the impact not big, even beneficial, symbiotic. Jia Yan has no regrets, nor does he have any thoughts of wanting the thread to implicate him again. He just wants to continue practicing well, and he is practicing without being observed by others. Even the observer may not come to observe him. There is such an existence that even a domain lord does not have. There is nothing else about him except that he cares about his privacy, and he doesn't like any strong creature that much, and he looks at himself with a superior eye unscrupulously. As an evolved beast, you still need to have this kind of courage and confidence. Well, it seems that there is no breakthrough, but my mentality seems to have changed slightly. I don't know if it is the influence of the silk thread. Haha, maybe my own mentality has changed. Jia Yan smiled slightly, and then he entered the state of cultivation again. With this practice, the feeling of worrying about being watched disappeared, and he felt like a spring of thoughts. Many things that he had never thought of before, as well as thoughts that he dared not think about, were born. Of course, this is not really restricted by the thread, but it is just a natural psychological reaction after finally having something that may have been observing me disappear. In short, this is a good thing. Jia Yan combined many thoughts and insights with his current thoughts, and he actually figured out a lot of things. Very good, no matter what, this is a great thing for me. He exhaled softly, and then a dizzy feeling spread throughout his body. Huh? I was just imagining some things for the territory lord, but after thinking through more than 1,300 ideas, I actually feel dizzy. No, I have thought through more than 1,000 ideas, but it is still too much. No wonder I feel dizzy. Even a strong person at the top of the middle level of the galaxy would definitely be overwhelmed by thinking about so many things. I am not a thinker. Jia Yan shook his head and decided to leave the seclusion and walk around. Jia Yan, you're finally out. It's been more than a month. When Jia Yan walked out of his retreat, he was faced with the powerful pangolin domain master who had sensed something. More than a month? Have I been in seclusion for so long? Jia Yan felt that his whole body was not well, and he felt like a day in the mountains is like 1,000 years in the world. But this is also normal. It is very possible for a strong person to go into seclusion for several years, let alone a month. After he was stunned, he looked at the pangolin creature next to him. Then he put aside his own physical problems and suddenly noticed that the senior had a lot of differences. Senior, your strength. I've regressed, right? Haha, it doesn't matter. I've transferred a lot of my energy to the yin and yang dao. It feels pretty good. Although it's weak, I seem to have grasped a hint of your positive and negative explosive fighting methods. That is, said, the strength is probably not as weak as you think. This. Jia Yan was slightly surprised, but then he understood and smiled awkwardly. This is so normal. A domain master is still a strong person who has a rough understanding of Jia Yan's theory of yin and yang dao. Their original existence is an existence with high talent and knowledge. After Jia Yan taught them the preliminary knowledge of yin and yang dao, it is very normal for them to discover certain things in the process of self-cultivation. Moreover, the existence of Jia Yan himself has proven some mature yin and yang dao fighting methods. As long as they follow Jia Yan's fighting method, they can understand after some theory, imitate and do it. That is the simplest thing. For more than a month, I searched for Shiyu and it was enough for these three strong men who had already understood a lot of yin and yang dao to make a lot of adjustments and speed up the progress of their cultivation. However, Jia Yan was a little embarrassed because he didn't give these three the idea of a higher yin and yang dao, but they studied it themselves. If he hadn't interfered, they might have gone astray, because they were not positive and negative constitutions. Of course, there was a certain possibility that they would develop yin-yang dao into other areas of research, and end up with something that was also yin-yang dao, but there may also be new directions for different factions. However, Jia Yan had no intention of letting the three seniors take risks. Now that the three of them have made such progress, I will no longer hide it. When I have the opportunity, I will teach them the correct Onmyado fighting skills. However, it is best to let the world see these fighting things slowly, because I want to advance to the level of Domain Lord before that. Okay. I'm just waiting for your words, haha. The pangolin creature was slightly amused. He said that the reason why he developed the positive and negative combat moves was actually to put some pressure on Jia Yan. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2331. Although he didn't want to make the relationship between the two parties worse, he still wanted to improve his own strength. What's more, Jia Yan didn't give them the training skills of yin and yang in the past. That was because Jia Yan himself didn't know how to do it. Territory Lord, now that he has studied both positive and negative combat skills, it also shows that he has no sequelae. In this case, it makes sense for Jia Yan to give them combat skills. In this way, the gap between the two parties can become smaller to the greatest extent. By the way, seniors, how has the war situation been over the past month or so? Jia Yan changed the topic. After all, the relationship between everyone was a bit awkward after breaking the news like this. Pangolin obviously knows this, and wants to resolve the awkward gap with Jia Yan as much as possible. If he really wants to follow the path of yin and yang in the future, he will have to ask Jia Yan, because he is the creator, and he seems to have good physical fitness. He is much better than them in the past, so he will always be their teacher in the future. He became very solemn. For more than a month, to be honest, the war situation has become very anxious as we thought before. But overall, the enemy forces are still pressing forward step by step, advancing in our direction. Coming over, their main force is attacking the northern pass area, but the 200,000 troops here seem to have traded with our Jia Yan troops, and are specifically looking for areas with Jia Yan troops to advance. In the next several large areas, they were originally in the hinterland, with high defensive facilities and fighting enthusiasm, so they defended for a longer time, but I think it won't be too long before one or two of them will be bulldozed. In the end, this group will be bulldozed. The partial army will arrive in front of us. Coming towards us? Are you still looking for Jia Yan's troops? Yes, it is said that one of the commanders of the incoming troops is the territory lord who fought with your Jia Yan troops in the grassland. He presided over the attack route and said that the most difficult ones should be pulled out first. The flag, that is, the area with our Jia Yan troops pulled it out, maybe because it has a grudge against you. Only then did Jia Yan remember that when he led the original Jia Yan troops from the land of ice and snow to the battlefield in the grassland area, he had a friction with the domain lord. It was not even a friction, because he did not have any contact with the other party. Meet. Unexpectedly, this guy holds a grudge so much that he is still entangled with his Jia Yan troops. Even if you come, it will take at least a while, right? Yes, as the front lines are becoming more and more reinforced, we think that this war will become a war of attrition. It may last a year, 2 years, or even 3 or 4 years. It won't take them so much time to reach us. This great area. Senior, how about this? Go and apply to the higher UPS. One of the 5,000 troops we have trained in this region can be sent to the front line to participate in battles from time to see if there is any miraculous effect. You can also adapt to it. Give me battle command. Huh? That's fine. On the same day, Jia Yan's combat application was submitted, and soon, such a combat approval for the unit that had certain expectations was also approved. For the entire master force, it can be said that it has been in a state of disarray recently. The direction to be attacked is not just the northern war zone. Otherwise, even if 2 or 3 or 4 coalition forces attack, because they are fighting away from home, the masters must be able to easily drive them out. As long as they come, a batch of reinforcements is enough. But the problem is, the entire land of the masters' influence seems to have suddenly arrived with a group of coalition forces, and a large number of enemies are using all their strength to surround it from all directions, as if they want to be wiped out by the masters' influence in one go. As a result, except for the surrounding areas in the north, it seems that they have no time to take care of themselves. Even though the north can be said to be the most serious area, no one can spare their hands to support. As a result, in the northern land, the existing strength of Jia Yan's army became very eye-catching. The enemy's army is said to be 200,000, but that's because they have been deliberately maintaining only 200,000. The reserve army will continuously replenish the 200,000. The actual loss of troops in Yukio and other lands may exceed the total number. 200,000. The total number of Jia Yan's troops does not refer to the 10,000 in training in this area. Although the 25,000 man troops divided into 2 units are estimated to be the most powerful, but in fact, Jia Yan's troops along the way come here, several Jia Yan troops have been trained. In this way, for the entire war, as long as this force is used well, it may also be a force worth looking forward to. Of course, the key reason is that this is equivalent to an extra force within this large area, which is not used in vain. Not long after, 2 groups of Jia Yan's troops stopped training and began to go out. I wish you good luck. Of course, the most important reason is to buy me more time as much as possible. On this day, Jia Yan climbed up and looked far away. At the gate of the city in this region, he looked at the army of 10,000 people far away. They were led by the Black Bear Territory Lord and another Guard Territory Lord who was protecting him. The 2 were the commanders. When I left, I was still very high-spirited. Jia Yan does not think that such a small number of Jia Yan troops can accomplish anything great, because this kind of war has nothing to do with 2 Jia Yan troops. Overall, the entire war is not conducive to the masters at all. Power. However, he did not underestimate himself, that is, the ability of Jia Yan's troops was still extremely strong, not to mention the Jia Yan troops commanded by the 2 domain masters, because they had a deep understanding of yin and yang dao, so the troops they brought out were it also contains a lot of yin-yang principles, so the entire 2 armies of 5,000 people seem to have been tailor-made by them, and their combat effectiveness is fully worth looking forward to. Presumably it will have an extraordinary effect on delaying the enemy. At the very least, Jia Yan recognized this. But all he wants is time. If Jia Yan's troops can do this, he will be completely satisfied. In the next few days, Jia Yan made an excuse to let the senior pangolin who was left to take care of him conduct training with 2 new armies, and he hid in the training room again. Jia Yan has more cultivation resources than ever before. Even if his status has declined, for him, having such great power means that the resources are enough. He can't use any more. So, like this, feel your best. In the entire territory of the master's influence, which is riddled with holes, no one pays attention to a person like him. He has spent a lot of resources. After all, don't all the territory lords have more resources than him? There are so many territory lords in the master's land, and their role may not be as great as Jia Yan's, so no one pays attention to this. Buzz buzz. This assassination organization's domain master's body is of great help to my subspace. I thought before that he might have a certain effect on my subspace, but I didn't expect it to be so big. Jia Yan was silently immersed in his practice in the practice room. He had always been extremely attentive to his practice, especially when using the corpses of the two domain lords. He was extremely careful because of the domain lord's physical body only has so much, it will be gone when it is used up. The physical body of the territory lord who assassinated the organization was of great help to Jia Yan. He did not expect that his path to subspace would lead to many new breakthroughs because of this assassination of the territory lord. Many of the flesh bodies that assassinate the domain lord are traces of human transformation. Some of them exist in subspace, and some are entangled with gravitational waves. For me, although it is impossible to imitate, we can learn from it. After Jia Yan understood its physical structure, he fell into deep thought. It is best not to modify the physical body of a domain lord, because it will kill the future potential. Jia Yan will never do that kind of thing, but he can modify the body of the other party to obtain a large number of. I got some inspiration from the idea of assassinating the domain lord. Of course, this inspiration does not mean that he can do similar things in the future. Although under certain circumstances, Jia Yan will not resist this kind of thing, but this is not what he is thinking about now. He is not there yet. Kind of situation. He was just wondering if he could learn something from his breakthrough. Assuming that I will definitely be able to break through to the territory lord, then if I follow my past experience of breaking through with evolved beasts, I will definitely make some changes to my body. This kind of change is not man-made, but my evolutionary choice. I cannot artificially control the direction of evolution, but I can influence it. This is what I have been doing since I was reborn as a mosquito. Jia Yan recalled that after his rebirth, he mutated again and again. Each time, there was his own evolutionary choice in it. In the end, the strongest mosquito in the history of the earth was born. And this time, he couldn't say that he couldn't try this feeling. In the past, the bodies I deliberately affected were usually to enhance defense, attack, and density. I even affected the body structure of the front and back bodies. It can be said that I have reached the ultimate perfection in every aspect. When many creatures see my body, they will think that I am that kind of biological race that has lasted for millions of years, and they will not believe that I have worked hard to evolve to this appearance by myself. But this is not so unique within Biostar, because here, there are really many beings with more perfect bodies than mine. Of course, even if I am not the top, I am definitely in the first echelon. Kind of, but, can I change my thinking mode? Since the simple walking body representation has almost reached its extreme, can I change the place? Jia Yan knows that his physical body is good enough compared to others. If he can be promoted to territory lord this time, his mutation will not be greatly improved even if he repairs the conventional directions such as evolving body defense again, then it is can't we find another way? For example, Swexu, the domain lord's physical body, has a certain entanglement with the subspace. Yes, if I imitate his entanglement, with my subspace ability, even if I still can't do what he does, my whole body is between subspace and gravitational wave space. Even some of his attacks are so powerful, but it won't be too different, not to mention that I can enter the subspace more quickly. Even in the northern superstar, I can enter the subspace just like in the normal space. Jia Yan thought about this and felt that a broad road was illuminated by him. In fact, after an idea is born, similar thoughts will follow. For example, Jia Yan thought about whether his path as a domain master can expand the yin and yang dao on a larger scale. Since his own yin-yang dao has been verified by the three domain masters' personal practice, which shows that the technique of yin-yang dao is feasible even at the domain master level. If the subspace is integrated into the body, why can't yin-yang dao work? In this way, his way of being a territory lord will change a lot. If I hadn't appeared as a so-called territory lord and had not cut off the thread, I would never have taken such a risk. But now, I have the ability that is said to be able to be promoted to territory lord for sure. Territory lord, then I can try these things, because not only am I confident in myself and can be promoted to territory lord, but everyone is confident in me, so why can't I try to be promoted in the most perfect state? Jia Yan is the kind of person who doesn't consider insurance factors if he can do better, so he doesn't care whether adding these few things will affect his path to becoming a domain master. Anyway, he does it. Say it again. Buzz buzz. In the training room, no one bothered me at all. Because Jia Yan has been in this state in the past few months, he doesn't even care about the war in the outside world and the tight resources. Everyone is used to him being deaf and blind. Attitude towards things. Of course, habits are habits. Many people still disagree with Jia Yan's approach of trying to get promoted during these war days, and even many domain owners sneered at him. Before promotion, there were actually quite a few territory lords with the appearance of territory lords. The actual promotion time for each of them ranged from decades to hundreds of years. Even if such territory lords gave them time, they would generally be promoted, but they have really never seen how many territory lords can be successfully promoted in a few years or even a few months with the status of territory lord. The appearance of a territory lord is a good thing, but it only means that you have this condition, not an ironclad certainty. In history, there are about 10% of the peak mid-level galaxies who, after appearing as territory lords, did not succeed in being promoted to territory lords until they died of old age. Of course, there are more people who died before being promoted because of enemy fear or various accidents before they became domain lords. These are other factors and are not included. In short, the appearance of the Lord is not such an absolute thing. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2332. Anyway, Jia Yan's approach of chasing ducks to the shelves is like wishful thinking to other people, and it is impossible to succeed at all. On this point, even Jia Yan and several of the major domain lord guards disagreed with him, but after all, he was half one of their own, so they didn't say anything in front of Jia Yan. What's more, these major domain lords have been a bit in the limelight recently. Their three major territory lords are actually the three most common territory lords. Even though they defeated several enemy territory lords in the Grassland War, in fact, they are just a little bit more powerful among the ordinary territory lords. In the real world, in the face of such a war, he is not at the level of a general. But after Jia Yan applied for the qualification to fight externally, the three major domain lords led 5,000 troops from time to time and took turns to go out to fight in the autumn wind. We had several small victories against small enemy forces. The biggest result was when the Pangolin territory master encountered an enemy force of 5,000 men in the wild with severe signal interference. As a result, the 5,000 men were killed with almost zero casualties. The human troops were completely wiped out, causing the superiors to issue several commendations in succession. On this day, Jia Yan, who was immersed in cultivation, was slightly startled. Huh? My personal emergency communicator is on. I told you that if there is no big problem, you can't use the communicator to disturb me. Could it be that the situation has changed? Receive it and see. While Jia Yan was practicing, he suddenly saw his emergency communicator light up. He felt calm and quickly picked up the communication. Fortunately, this communication was not a voice communication like telephone communication, but text. Jia Yan knew that in more serious cases, the other party would usually send a voice message, which made him feel a little more relaxed. After seeing the content of the message, he was startled again, and then left. Because what he received was indeed relatively big news, but it was definitely not bad news. But it's great news. Two armies of 5,000 men from Jia Yan's army formed a unit to attack, and then won another victory, and it was a great victory. Moreover, it changed from the previous battle of fighting against the autumn wind and destroying small troops. The power of Jia Yan's troops in this battle attracted the attention of the entire northern region. Although Jia Yan's troops in the past, the 2,000-man model, were extremely powerful, appearing at critical moments on certain battlefields, they might even reverse a draw. However, due to the small number of people and too many restricted areas, Jia Yan's troops are generally used as some kind of special forces on the battlefield on various battlefields. This is why, within the entire battlefield, the status of Jia Yan's troops is getting lower and lower. Even the 25,000-man troops commanded by the three major domain lords actually turned many people's expectations into disappointment. Because they only dared to attack small groups, there were times when the three territory lords personally chased and killed the troops led by a junior galactic powerhouse, and they were very happy to do so. That kind of difference in strength allows anyone to win a complete victory. Many people are complaining, feeling that the combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's army of 5,000 people is much weaker than imagined. But this time, it was completely different, a real head-on decisive battle. Jia Yan's two troops of 5,000 men formed an army of 10,000 men. This unprecedented troop size, an army of 10,000, actually dared to face an enemy army of 50,000 in an emergency. It was due to mission requirements that Jia Yan's troops were originally ordered to interfere with the movement of the 50,000-strong army. However, they did not expect that due to signal interference, the two sides met unexpectedly. As a result, they did not evacuate the battlefield at all. Possibly, without the assistance of other troops, Jia Yan's troops directly engaged the enemy in a head-on confrontation without any tricks. You must know that the enemy's 50,000-strong army is a large regular army and a military group with several division-level forces. Once the 50,000-strong army tore apart a quasi-group army in a large region. There were 5 territory lords in it, no less than galaxy level. 500. In contrast, Jia Yan's army only had 2 territory lords at that time, and the galaxy level was less than 200. It is impossible for anyone to think that Jia Yan's troops will win, or even whether they can last for one round. But the actual fighting situation surprised everyone. Because these two 5,000-man troops are really different from the 2,000-man Jia Yan troops. The coordination of yin and yang dao of individual soldiers, as well as the joint combat skills of yin and yang dao, due to the longer training time, each creature has a different in-depth understanding, which is much stronger than that of an army of 2,000 people, and the joint combat skills are due to the after the number of people on our side increases, the whole situation can be said to be very changeable. As long as the commander has enough processing power, 5,000 people can burst out with the same ability as the ancient Chinese footwork mysterious formation. Of course, the entire Jia Yan unit is even more different. That is, unlike the 2,000 Jia Yan troops, they are commanded by a domain lord. Compared with the previous commanders of Jia Yan's troops, the territory lord has a huge difference in personal strength. The biggest difference is that they are strong men and their brain processing ability can be processed faster than that of ordinary Jia Yan's troop commanders. Draw conclusions and then make correct decisions. It is precisely because of having such a domain lord as the most powerful brain that the battle between two 5,000-man troops is like turning into an art form. During the whole process, there were 2 major domain masters, one was the pangolin creature, and the other was the black bear creature, and neither party made much of a personal attack. That's right, they really didn't attack, but used the galaxy-level squads they commanded. There were nearly 200 galaxy-level squads. A group of 3 people would be more than 60 squads. If they join forces to form a team with more people, the upper limit would be a team of 9 people. There are more than 20 teams, and a team of 9 people, as long as they are used well and used in conjunction, it is really possible to deal with a strong domain lord. The 2 territory lords, as if extremely excited, commanded the troops together, 1 against 5, but they turned this locally extremely grand battle into an aesthetic. From top to bottom, from beginning to end, the team of Jia Yan's troops did not have any major flaws. Instead, under the command of the 2 domain masters, they followed the training and recent actual combat experience and carried out the battle in an orderly manner. Cut up the enemy, even run away in a group style, and then pounce back. Even the scene of 3 venerable level players fighting against a star level player often appears. You know, the difference between the 2 sides is not 1 level, but 2 levels. No one thought that they could resist it, but unfortunately, with the concerted efforts of all Jia Yan's troops, this impossibility became possibly, because when the venerable goes to block the star level, it is usually the star level that has a battle with a squad of 3.5 star level Jia Yan troop soldiers. When they are extremely weak, they are defeated by the venerable level. Once the team blocks, the attack launched will definitely not be in full strength. Even if the venerable team will be injured, they will not die. Of course there will be surprises, after all, the difference in numbers between the 2 sides is too great. But from the beginning, the battlefield seemed to be trapped in some kind of confusion. The enemy's 50,000 troops were full of confidence because they knew that the Jia Yan troops in front of them were probably the largest troops since the emergence of such things. The scale has never been tested in a real war. With the huge gap between the enemy and ourselves, Jia Yan's troops have no chance of winning. But after the fighting started, the commanders of all levels of the 50,000 strong army were completely confused. Because the 10,000 Jia Yan troops actually cut and wrapped them on the frontal battlefield, and in turn, the 50,000 troops were surrounded by small teams. What was even more terrifying was that they were surrounded by small groups. At first, you thought you had defeated the troops in front of you, but the Jia Yan troop squad that was supposed to deal with the 50,000 troops from other sides would suddenly turn around and deal with them without any warning. The recovery ability of Jia Yan's troops also gave them a headache. Originally, when their strength was weak, Jia Yan's troops were equal to 1 person fighting 5 people. It was impossible for their physical strength to sustain it. However, because of the 3-man team, their physical strength the consumption became shared by 3 people, and the explosive power of Yin and Yang Dao was extremely terrifying. So after fighting, everyone in the 50,000 troops was almost exhausted, but Jia Yan's troops were still alive and kicking. This alarmed the enemy so much. Halfway through the war, the 50,000 enemy troops realized something was wrong, but by then they had already killed 2 domain lords, and nearly 10,000 more were killed or injured by Jia Yan's troops. Wanted to evacuate the battlefield, but Jia Yan's troops refused to let him go. Number 1 right 100, number 2 left 230. The sky above moves in the opposite direction, and the sky below moves forward too. The presence of the 2 territory lords was like holding a big net, and the order to go down was obeyed by countless soldiers of Jia Yan's army. As a result, the enemy troops who wanted to escape became more and more urgent. The more tightly he was pulled into the net, the more he could not move at all. After struggling, the battle became uninteresting, and the battle-loss ratio between the 2 sides became even more exaggerated. Often 70 or 80 enemy soldiers would die before a soldier of the same rank from Jia Yan's army would die. Who can survive this kind of battle-loss ratio? Finally, when another territory lord died in the 50,000 strong army, the remaining 2 territory lords were on the verge of collapse, and the casualties of the entire army reached half. This recently famous enemy army collapsed. Really collapsed, all the soldiers, including the 2 surviving territory lords, screamed, panicked, and began to escape. Die! Come and die! In this critical situation, the pangolin creature and the black bear creature, the brain commanders of these two Jia forces, the domain master who had never made a move at all, personally attacked. As soon as they appeared, they each arrived behind the two fleeing territory lords. Then, taking advantage of the two territory lords' precarious situation, they attacked with all their strength and killed them with one blow. Ha 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 ha, so happy. Who would have thought that in my lifetime, I, Black Bear, would one day slaughter ordinary domain owners like playing chickens and dogs? Pangolin, do you feel that this battle is so exciting, as if we are doing this for a living as the commander of Yin and Yang Dao? Sure enough, our original decision was not wrong. The two territory lords issued the final pursuit order together. The 5 major domain lords were all dead, and Jia Yan's troops no longer had the biggest threat. Although the enemy army still had about 25,000 troops, they were all defeated, and their mentality was even worse. So Jia Yan's troops immediately followed the training plan, and they maintained a certain mysterious connection method and dispersed into small groups, chasing them in all directions. Originally, the 25,000 enemies seemed to have begun to retreat, but in fact they had been caught in the large net of Jia Yan's troops. Therefore, this wave had just begun to retreat, but it seemed impossible to escape. They were faintly stood out from all around. The soldiers of Jia Yan's army, who had a sense of formation, came from all directions, like butterflies falling into a trap, and began to encounter more brutal strangulation. The battle loss ratio at this time was more than 70 or 80 to 1. The advantage of Jia Yan's unit is that if the person at the front is tired, injured, or has an emotional problem, he can instantly replace the person behind him. The person who was injured or tired just now can just release the power of brain waves from behind. The consumption becomes very slow, and not long after, the whole team is full of energy again, making it impossible to fight at all. The last remnants of the defeated army of 25,000 people were slowly being devoured one by two, by Jia Yan's team. When our army was really prepared to fight a decisive battle with the enemy's 50,000 strong army, a force of more than 60,000 troops urgently received intelligence and came from the garrison to support this army on the battlefield. He was so daring that he wandered around, but as expected he was surrounded by the enemy's Jia Yan troops. The scene they saw was the corpses of 50,000 enemy troops appearing all over the mountains and plains before their eyes. And on top of these corpses, there are groups of Jia Yan soldiers who seem to have been reborn from the ashes, with amazing temperaments and different eyes from before. They are searching for the enemy's equipment, or are carrying out operations in an orderly manner. Healing and talking and laughing. This. What's going on? Aren't we here to rescue Jia Yan's troops? This is. Look, that's the body of a domain lord? My God, could it be that this is the 50,000 enemy troops we have to deal with in the future, and may not even be able to deal with at all? How is it possible? This is one of the main forces in the enemy's 200,000 strong army, Jia Yan's troops? How did they do it? Oh my God, it seems that out of 50,000 enemies, only a few escaped? The combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's troops was so strong that even a 50,000 strong army was wiped out by them. This. It's incredible. It's really incredible. I knew that the temperament of Jia Yan's troops is really different. They are very strong. Some people used to say that they were not strong enough. Look at it, Jia Yan's troops are about to explode. Among the incoming support troops, the soldiers who controlled the forces one by one seemed to have seen some earth-shattering scene, and every one of them was stunned. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2333. They were not the only ones. In this battle, Jia Yan's troops only had 10,000 troops, and there was nothing special about their rank. Just because they were Jia Yan's troops, they had a great victory over an enemy's main army group in the north. It even caused their entire army to be wiped out. It seemed that there were really more than 50,000 people, and not a single one escaped. The content of the communication that Jia Yan received was exactly this text, as well as a long edited video of the battle recorded on site. Haha, it really didn't exceed my expectations. It's worthy of the expectations and cultivation of me. Jia Yan also smiled. But after laughing, he had a headache. Because from that day on, his communication has not been interrupted. Even the emergency communicator for external use can ring once or twice a day. There is no way, this is because Jia Yan's troops really exploded this time. It's completely exploded, reputation, combat effectiveness, and everything else has become explosive. A force of 10,000 people completely defeated the enemy's main army of 50,000 people. This is something that is hard to imagine in the North Star, where the strongest comes first, or in most places in the galaxy. After all, the strong are the strong, and they have more than doubled the number of domain lords at all levels. There were more than twice as many strong men, but under such circumstances, they were defeated to the point where no one could escape. No one could imagine how this kind of war would be fought. As for the two territory masters, Pangolin and Black Bear, their resumes are also very simple. At least before learning Jia Yan's Yin and Yang Dao command ability, they were inconspicuous and had no sense of existence at all. Therefore, it cannot be their abilities. Jia Yan's troops achieved such a great victory. The only reason is that Jia Yan's Yin and Yang Tao team up to fight. He actually has such powerful fighting power, so, if he doesn't look for Jia Yan, who will he look for? Forget it, let's just go out of seclusion for a while and deal with it. Jia Yan was helpless, and it was impossible for him to practice if he was interrupted like this, so he took advantage of the day when 10,000 Jia Yan's troops returned triumphantly with a great victory, and went out to deal with affairs, which was also a way to welcome the two domain lords and the entire 10,000 strong Jia Yan army. When they saw Jia Yan's troops and the two domain lords all had a strong desire to win glory for Jia Yan, and they all fell from the sky with high spirits. Jia Yan, a group of domain lords, and a large number of other soldiers who came to learn from the troops, welcomed these victorious soldiers. Even the voices of the two territory lords were trembling when they spoke. This was due to excitement. God knows, when they first made the decision to give up part of their strength and take the risk to learn Yin and Yang, how long they struggled and how much psychological work they did on themselves. Now, they have received rewards. They are proud enough to have such combat power and command such a unit. In the future, they will never be timid even in the eyes of senior domain masters. Thank you, Your Excellency Jia Yan. When the pangolin spoke to Jia Yan, there was a hint of respect. You're welcome. This is also a good performance by the two seniors on the spot. Jia Yan nodded, not showing any respect for the two of them, nor having the slightest bit of pride, because this was actually the result of the two of them, or in other words plus the other three domain lords, trusting themselves enough and having the courage to try the Yin and Yang Dao. If it were Jia Yan himself, he really would not have the slightest courage to learn the self-created cultivation path of an intermediate-level peak being in the galaxy. The region arranged a large amount of work to welcome the triumphant troops. Jia Yan, the two territory lords, and another slightly unwilling guardian territory lord became the complete protagonists in this welcome. However, during this period, several senior leaders of the Master's forces, who were also two powerful territory lords, came to Jia from the hinterland of the Master's influence, taking risks along the way. In front of the rock. Taking advantage of the familiarity process after the introduction, the two men proposed their tasks. You want me to go to the hinterland? Sorry, I really haven't had such an idea recently. Jia Yan seemed to have expected such a reaction, but calmly shook his head and refused. The two domain masters looked at Jia Yan and didn't know what to say for a moment. In their opinion, this mission should be very simple. After all, Jia Yan is only a peak mid-level star in the galaxy, and their two domain lords are not ordinary domain lords. This is very helpful. Jia Yan lost face, and the war situation in the north was getting more and more dangerous. Jia Yan, the middle-level peak of the galaxy, must stay here for one more day, and there would be one more day of risk. It should be a dream for him to enter the safe hinterland. Unexpectedly, Jia Yan refused. Okay, you too, Jia Yan said. He doesn't want to go. It must be for the sake of the war in the northern land. You don't want to force him anymore. If you have this time, it's better to let him go and let him train a little more. Sending Jia Yan troops out is the most helpful thing for the war. This, well, we won't force Mr. Jia Yan, but we still say this. If Mr. Jia Yan changes his mind, he can report it to the superiors at any time, and someone strong will definitely come forward soon. Welcome. The two domain lords didn't really do anything, because they couldn't force this kind of thing. If Jia Yan refused to train troops for the master forces in the hinterland, then there was nothing they could do. And now, Jia Yan is no longer an ordinary mid-level galaxy peak in this northern region. Behind him, there were so many Jia Yan troops supporting him, and it seemed that after 10,000 were wiped out 50,000, Jia Yan's troops had become one of the most important main forces in the northern theater. Even if the number was there are few, but their fighting power has already caused the enemy to stop moving in this direction. Even about half of the troops, that is, 100,000 people, began to gradually tilt in this direction, but they did not dare to attack. After all, 10,000 were killed and 50,000 were killed. Jia Yan's army itself only suffered more than 1,000 casualties. Now that they returned to the area, they immediately transferred a large number of soldiers from other Jia Yan's troops to restore their strength. A force of 10,000, such a force that wiped out 50,000, and a force of 100,000 to confront, is not an exaggeration. Even because there are no less than hundreds of thousands of ordinary master forces in this area, 10,000 thousands of troops came to confront each other, but they were all a little weak. In the entire northern region, the enemy's advance was overwhelming, and suddenly it seemed like they were stuck in a quagmire because of Jia Yan's troops. In this way, the Jia Yan troops behind Jia Yan seemed to have given him endless support. Even the two powerful domain lords who far exceeded the average domain lord did not dare to force Jia Yan too much. 3 seniors, 2 more 5,000 man troops have arrived. The quality of the troops this time is better than last time, but I don't have so much energy for training anymore. You should know my ambition, so this training I'll leave it to you. Let's tell the outside world that I can also contribute. I want to challenge the territory lord. After welcoming the grand event, Jia Yan, who had enjoyed all the glory, quickly returned to calm. He used a lot of excuses to shirk all the communications that came from various sources, including invitations, wanting to send soldiers over to study, or having various thoughts about making friends with Jia Yan, and he began to make statements that he would not necessarily reply to in the future. News, because military training is quite busy. But under this excuse, he said the above with the 3 guardian domain lords, oh no, the 3 current commanders, who have a much higher status than ordinary domain lords in the northern war zone. Of a word. Jia Yan, we are not pouring cold water on you, but the way of a territory lord is not so easy to succeed. Think about it, throughout the ages, there have been so many territory lords, not many of them have been able to succeed in a few months. Or it can be accomplished within a few years, and it took more than 100 years for several of us to become territory lords. Even if you have the appearance of a territory lord, it will probably be difficult for you to become a territory lord in the course of this war. Yes, Jia Yan, in my opinion, you might as well give up that attachment and come to the battlefield. We have discussed that you must be capable of commanding an army of 10,000 Jiayan, or even 20,000 Jiayan troops. If 4 or 5 more domain lords are given to you as subordinates, the combat effectiveness of such troops may be able to withstand 5 times or even more times the enemy force. The impact on the war will be too great. You might as well think about it. The 3 domain masters are all trying to persuade Jiayan. What they said was right, just like what outsiders believed. Jiayan could not be promoted to territory lord so easily. They did not have anything against Jiayan, or they wanted to stop Jiayan's cultivation, they were just discussing the matter. 3 Excellencies, you also know very well that the purpose of my coming to the North Star is to be promoted to the territory lord, so please don't stop me. If there is a chance, I will come out, but before that, I also ask a few seniors to help me. I believe our friendship has long surpassed the relationship between a guard and a protected target, right? Jiayan began to build relationships and talk about emotions. In this way, the 3 domain masters had nothing to say. They just looked at each other, then smiled bitterly and agreed to Jiayan's request. The day after Jiayan's troops returned home in triumph, Jiayan re-entered the cultivation state as if nothing was wrong. During this training, he even turned off the so-called emergency communicator and created a new communication number that only the 3 senior domain masters and several other related people knew. As a result, in the entire North Star and the entire Master Force, except for these few, no one can know his communication method, and no one can disturb him while he is practicing. Moreover, Jiayan has also made plans. If it comes to a critical situation and becomes more mutated than this, he will even close the only communication channel and seal himself in the place of cultivation. In order to be as safe as possible, he retreated this time, found connections, and came to the safest underground facility in the region. This kind of facility usually stores key military supplies and can even prevent raids by domain lords. In this way, even if the area is captured by the enemy, the place where Jiayan is located will have some time to buffer and escape from the side road, which can be said to be extremely safe. After using a lot of favors and making arrangements for the other party, Jiayan entered the state of cultivation again. Finally, it's time to practice alone again. This time, I guess, I will become a territory lord. I have a strong feeling. Jiayan was in a place deep underground that was extremely quiet and gave people a sense of security, and he felt his whole body calm down. In the previous training place in the outside world, he felt that the surroundings were extremely quiet because of the good sound insulation of the facility, but he always understood in his heart that it was a bustling military camp and it was impossible to calm down. But now it was different. Apart from some military supplies and the ore transported to him for training, there was no more life. The nearest inhabited place had to be several kilometers above the surface. In this way, it was really extremely quiet and extremely safe. He felt that his soul was cleansed. A strong feeling made him understand in a trance that the key to his promotion to territory lord was in this retreat place. Bang! With another heavy slamming of the door, Jiayan couldn't hear even a trace of noise in his ears, and his mind was completely closed. Okay, I'm ready for the way of the territory lord. I believe that the day I come out of seclusion will be the time when my way of the territory lord is completed. Jiayan took a deep breath in this space and felt the same extremely huge energy in the planet deep under the North Star, as well as the unique compressed body. He only felt that his control was stronger than ever. The first step is to combine my physical body with the subspace. This is a blank breakthrough point. If it can be achieved, I will try to deepen the difference between my positive and negative bodies. In this way, I will be both the subspace physique and the stronger yin-yang Dao physique will definitely improve my strength after I am promoted to domain lord. Jiayan knew that the average territory lord, who was non-combatant before being promoted, could not become a combatant territory lord after growing up to be a territory lord. As for the general fighting type territory lord, Even if he is an extremely powerful fighting type when he is at the peak of the middle level of the galaxy, there is more than 90% chance that he will become an extremely ordinary territory lord after being promoted to a territory lord. This it's because they don't have the ability to maintain the advantages they had at the peak of the intermediate galaxy era at the territory lord level. Only about 10% of the fighting types can still remain fighting types after being successfully promoted. Jia Yan's time compression is amazing. If he wants to be promoted in such a short period of time, and if he wants to maintain his advantage as a combat type domain master, he must take full advantage of all aspects before promotion. Only in this way can he, a fighting domain lord who can still be qualified in the future, can crush most ordinary domain lords as soon as he appears. He didn't belittle himself, nor did he think he could definitely do it. This is difficult, but compared to other creatures, I really have a huge advantage. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2334. This advantage is also the reason why, according to rumors from various places, evolved beasts have an amazing advantage in being promoted to domain lords. And the key reason for this is, evolved beasts can evolve and mutate independently. Jia Yan has never forgotten that he is an evolved beast, and the greatest advantage of an evolved beast is that his body can gain a huge amount of mutation and enhancement through huge improvements in strength. This is the reason why all creatures who see Jia Yan will think that he is an ancient race of powerful people in the universe. Because of his mutation advantage, he can withstand a powerful ancient race in his lifetime. Evolution. Jia Yan knew very well that the next domain lord level upgrade would definitely be another terrifying upgrade. The dangers and wars in the outside world no longer affected Jia Yan. He relaxed and regarded himself as an alien. Even because his body was very small, he recalled the feeling he had when he was on the Grey Star. His whole body and mind fell into a certain kind of tranquility, so he was able to quickly bring his cultivation state to almost perfection. Call. Call. The air in the North Star is full of energy, which makes Jia Yan very comfortable and happy. His own evolved respiratory organs, combined with his powerful evolved heart, made his sense of cultivation rise rapidly. This is probably the quietest moment since I arrived at Biostar. I have always had a sense of crisis in the past, which was very uncomfortable. Only then did Jia Yan experience a different feeling, that is, he seemed to have never practiced so calmly in the North Star. In the past, the training environment in Biostar was either on transportation, in danger, or in many noisy environments. Under such circumstances, how could he practice well? You know, he is a person who cares about the environment. Otherwise, he would not be hiding in the core of the planet or hiding his name. In short, I should have quite a lot of opportunities to practice and improve now. I have a strong feeling that I will be in this retreat. Promoted to Domain Lord. Domain Lord. Thinking of such a name, he felt a little emotional. After all, this word has been almost accompanying his growth. From the ancient gray-yellow star, he knew the word Territory Lord since he knew the senior evolution beasts. Since then, these two words have become some kind of nightmare for Jia Yan. He will think about it every day and dream about it every night. Now, it is really possible to hit this level. It is impossible to say that Jia Yan is not excited. But he will do a good job of hiding his emotions. Let's start. The first thing Jia Yan did was to find the corpse of the domain lord who assassinated the organization, observe it, and find the direction that he might learn from. Yin yin. Immediately afterwards, his body began to simulate the creeping movement of some kind of energy. The subspace was opened, but not with the open software. Jia Yan did it with his subspace talent. Or it should be said that he no longer uses that software since some time ago. On the battlefield, the signal interference is serious, and using this software is unstable. In addition, during his long trip to the North Star, his strength has improved extremely horribly. Now, he uses open software to open the subspace and open the subspace with himself. Space, the difference is almost negligible. Instead of fighting the chance that the software may make an error and kill him in an emergency, he still believes in himself, so he decided to give up this software long ago. He doesn't care whether the open software will suffer any loss without his support. Of course, his own life is more important. Yin yin yin. The subspace opens and closes, closes and opens again. Jia Yan didn't speak or think much. He just carefully focused all his energy on his observation of the subspace. I don't know how long it has been like this, but at a certain moment, a certain brilliance suddenly appeared in his giant mosquito compound eyes. Puff. Jia Yan stretched out his mouth parts, causing the mouthpiece to pierce into the area lord's flesh, which was less than 1 meter away. Don't underestimate the piece of meat, which is just 1 meter long. This is the body of a domain lord. If it reaches the outside world, this meter will probably expand into a huge corpse hundreds or even thousands of meters long. It is impossible for ordinary technological warships to destroy that kind of body. But under Jia Yan's mouth part, the piece of meat seemed to be made of paper, and it penetrated into it all at once. Puff puff. The mouth parts were withdrawn like crazy, and the pieces of meat turned into congealed liquid, which was then sucked into Jia Yan's mouth. It didn't take too long for this huge piece of meat to become all the nutrients for Jia Yan, which made his giant mosquito abdomen bulge out, as if he drank a lot of blood. Yes, for Jia Yan, this is the best energy, which is just like the behavior of ordinary mosquitoes on Earth sucking blood. Jia Yan has always had the ability to suck blood, but in the later stages, he saw less and less things that he valued. For those creatures, he generally didn't bother to drink their blood, but it was different for the territory lord. In the past, even if there is no such opportunity, Jia Yan would not dare to do so, but now that he has the corpses of 2 major domain lords in his hands, what else can he dare to do? Good steel should be used on a good blade. At least at the moment, he used this energy at the most suitable time. Such a strong energy, worthy of being a territory lord. Even if he has died, and died after losing a lot of energy, it is still the best supplement for me at the moment. A corpse that assassinates the territory lord is not just as simple as giving him breakthrough energy. The bigger reason is that Jia Yan wants to use this body to assassinate the territory lord and feel his adjustment to the subspace and gravitational wave space. Although this method cannot be copied, it definitely has reference significance. The effect after swallowing is definitely much faster than simply observing. It's not like he didn't swallow it before, but in order to save some time for breakthrough and replenish energy, he was not willing to swallow it in such a big gulp. Now that he was about to break through, gulping it down was nothing, and it just happened to increase the speed of research. I see, I understand. What they used was to combine some of the atoms with the original molecules of the living thing. This caused the molecules of the 2 bodies to become entangled, and then it became another subspace. Physique, and the physique of the gravitational wave system. And I don't need to do this. If I mutate next, I can directly perform the same operation at the molecular level. Compared with their operation method, mine is simpler. After all, they can only place molecules. I can put the fluctuations in the subspace directly into the molecular level. As for gravitational waves, forget it, it's more expensive than expensive. I have already learned too many things. If there is another gravitational wave, it will definitely not be a plus. The effect of 5 being greater than 6 may even make 1 plus 5 less than 3, which is not worth the gain. Jia Yan gained energy, and at the same time, he gained a lot of ways to add subdimensional physique to his body. The same goes for positive and negative forces. I can follow the same pattern, and the positive and negative constitutions can be simpler, because I already have positive and negative constitutions, but they are not integrated into every molecule. After some manipulation, my yin and yang dao will definitely become more powerful. Jia Yan continued his operations calmly. This was very natural and smooth for him. Because for Jia Yan, at this moment, he is like returning to the process of improvement and mutation again and again, and because his body has become smaller, he still has the feeling of practicing on the earth, which is very friendly. However, the things they do are not the same as those done on earth, but are much more advanced. The promotion of Territory Lord is not as simple as what Jia Yan is doing now. In fact, it requires the right time, place, and people, and the conditions he currently has are actually pretty good. Especially in terms of energy, he was surrounded by materials that he had collected from various places during this period and supported by a large number of domain lords. A lot of the energy actually had positive and negative attributes that he desperately needed. After devouring the body of the assassin Territory Lord, he began the formal breakthrough process, otherwise this energy would be wasted. Jia Yan first stabilized his own energy, then understood his own body, and deliberately created a small number of molecules with subspace energy, which should be used as an introduction to future mutations. After that, among the piles of various ores beside him, as well as the various energies collected by Jia Yan, there were continuous leaps, which were instilled into Jia Yan's body and mouth from time to time, and then were oral. The device is swallowed bit by bit. What made Jia Yan very gratified was that when he started swallowing like this, a large amount of condensation emerged in his body without his control. Jia Yan has already been able to control this kind of condensate by himself, and he will appear if he wants them to appear. However, it is not controlled by Jia Yan at the moment, which means that his body has already felt the feeling of mutation, so he began the process of mutation. You're right, I will succeed. Come on. Jia Yan encouraged himself. Once mutation begins, the process is irreversible and cannot be interrupted, otherwise it will lead to death. For Jia Yan, this is equivalent to shooting without turning back. Gurgling gurgling. A large amount of condensation emerged from the surface of the body bit by bit, and then began to swallow a large amount of energy around the body. Jia Yan didn't panic or get too excited. He just followed the method he had set long ago and placed the listed energies bit by bit in the distance and let his condensation swallow them up one after another. In this way, his energy will be devoured and accelerated to mutate according to his own requirements, and the whole process will be different from before and become more orderly. This is the various knowledge and self-awareness that I have enhanced during this period. If none of the previous domain lords of evolved beasts have come to North Superstar, then this matter may be the biggest difference between me and them. Well, in this Northern Superstar, I really learned too much and got too much inspiration. This time the Territory Lord mutated, it was the time to confirm whether my gains were useful. Jia Yan looked at the various energies and ores he had arranged calmly. You must know that all his recent knowledge points, as well as his own insights, etc., were finally used by him with a lot of knowledge and calculations to arrange this kind of evolutionary swallowing mineral arrangement. The truth behind it can be said to be completely unlike it seems so simple now. My knowledge has greatly increased, and I have gained more insights. The whole feeling is like a gap in my chest. Although I am facing the most difficult promotion in my life, I don't panic. This is different from every time before. The mutations are all different. Think about the previous mutations. Every time, there is a sense of uncertainty of fighting to the death. What a big deal. As Jia Yan gradually felt his own evolution and mutation, he did not forget to complain about his former self. Gurgling gurgling. As the devouring progressed, Jia Yan began to fall into a trance, but this was something that had been expected for a long time. He began to constantly replay the large amount of domain master knowledge he had acquired these days, as well as his own cultivation feelings, plus a lot of battles, experience, etc., in order to prevent yourself from getting too carried away and causing failure in promotion. He also has the greatest confidence, that is, he possesses the so-called region lord's appearance. Even if about 10% of the winners of this domain lord's appearance fail, the success rate is 90%. Jia Yan's previous promotions had a success rate of only 10% or 20%, but he survived them all. For him, 90% was as confident as 100%, so he had no scruples. Under various conditions, he began the process of being promoted to Domain Lord with full confidence, but also a lot of uncertainty. It's just that Jia Yan has started to be promoted here, and he doesn't even know how much time it will take. The outside control force in the Northern Theater will not stop the progress of the war just because he is being promoted. Even because of the sudden surge in combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's troops, the entire Northern Theater has become more eye-catching. Even the enemy has set its sights on this area where the masters gather. The 200,000 strong army that originally attacked in this direction was reduced by 50,000 troops. Then they advanced to the area where Jia Yan was located, only 2 areas away. There, with the 50,000 strong Jia Yan army, the army, as well as the 300,000 troops gathered from various regions, faced off together. However, after the confrontation did not last long, and only 3 or 4 battles involving more than 10,000 people broke out between the two sides, the masters received information that the enemy had once again brought in an army of 100,000 from the main force attacking the pass. The army attacking the pass was finally reduced to 500,000, but here it became more than 300,000, and it became evenly matched with the local coalition forces in the northern region of the Masters' power. It's just that on the side of the Masters' power, there is a Jia Yan force of 10,000 people, which is equivalent to more than 5 times the army. Later, a large number of Jia Yan troops were trained, so at least in this area, the northern allied forces still have the advantage. But wind and rain, whether they come sooner or later, will always come. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2335. The precarious Masters force is actually a force that has been eradicated by agreement with the masters of the major forces around it a long time ago. The reason is simple. When Jia Yan first came to North Star, the first place of power he arrived was the power of Nyoda, so he thought that the whole North Star was like this. But in fact, this is the unmarked North Star. The fact that there is a princess-like little devil in the territory of the Master's influence shows that the Master's family manages the people well. Generally speaking, most of the forces are not as good as the Master's power, and they do not treat ordinary people so well. As a result, with the power of the Master growing day by day, the leaders of other forces faced criticism that they wanted to imitate the power of the Master to govern the people. The only way they could come up with was to simply and neatly remove the power of the Master. Once the whole thing is done, you have nothing to say about eliminating such a force that treats the people better, right? As a result, a war against the Master's power was launched in full swing under the agreement of many power lords, and it was almost one-sided from the beginning. The people in the land of the Master's power had no control over the entire power. I have never understood what happened in the war, and I don't know what the outcome will be. The content of this agreement was revealed, and the controlling force took it out to make a big fuss. At first glance, I didn't feel that my own force was being conquered. The ordinary strongmen and ordinary biological subjects suddenly became unhappy. It turns out that our life is good. Do you outsiders want to make our life bad? How can this work? Suddenly, the war work within the Master's forces began to gain greater support from public opinion, and the resistance work became more intense than ever. It was precisely because of this increased resistance that the enemy troops were hindered, but this also led to the escalation of the war. In the northern theater zone, one of the most intense war areas, more than one massacre by enemy troops occurred. The massacre of the city added to the huge reaction of the people within the master's influence. Countless powerful creatures, who were originally just waiting and watching, learned that some big families in the northern region, including some well-known group leaders, were massacred in these cities. After they died in the act, they immediately understood that it was impossible for their own power to live a good life even after the fall of the master's land, so they became active in supporting frontline work. In the northern region, due to the strength of this support, it has become unprecedentedly chaotic. All the areas that the enemy forces want to capture are absolutely reduced to scorched earth. No matter whether it is a big city or a small city, or even a small village, when the enemy sees living things are killed. Under the huge difference in numbers, even if all the people in the master's power are soldiers, the enemy's strength is generally stronger, and there is a steady stream of soldiers joining the battlefield in reserve, so they firmly occupy the initiative. But when the resistance is fierce, don't think that the master's power will be better off. This is just wearing out the enemy's patience. Because the difference in strength is too big. Just like the northern region, the entire region is equivalent to resisting the joint attack of two enemy forces. In one region, it is possible to resist two giant forces that can be compared with the master's forces. How can it win? So even if it is a scorched earth strategy, it is definitely difficult to really resist. The war was so terrible that when the fighting escalated, countless people were displaced. Every time an enemy came, there would be volunteers to fight, but most of them dragged their families and fled to the rear area. Biological people. The area where Jia Yan and the others were located was quickly filled up, especially because they knew that in the previous war, the famous one against 5 Jia Yan troops were trained here, and almost all of them everyone thinks that this is at least a temporary safe place. Everyone wants to escape to the hinterland of the master's influence, but the easy-to-reach pass is blocked by the enemy. Other roads do not have such large-scale transportation capabilities, so they must have a temporary foothold and come back later. Search for a way to escape into the hinterland. And I don't know how many people are waiting for a turn in the war, because the enemy has also suffered heavy casualties. If there is no necessary reason, they will not persist like this. But the problem is that the enemy has an arrow on the string and has to take action. After all, they are destined to gain something when they plunder the place where the master has power, such as land rewards, financial rewards, or some profit concessions or the like. Otherwise they have paid so much, how could they withdraw? But the controlling forces did not relent, so the war between the two sides was still unfolding. I said, the so-called Jia Yan has not shown up since I came here for training. It is said that none of the troops who came here for training a year ago have seen him. You said this guy, did he escape to the hinterland? It's hard to say. Although we are all called Jia Yan's troops, the troops and soldiers who were first trained said that we are not members of Jia Yan's troops because we have not been trained by Jia Yan himself. We don't want this yet. As for the name, God knows if this Jia Yan is a virtual hero created by a powerful figure in the upper echelons of power, and many people are spreading the word like this now. Isn't it possible? Is Jia Yan a fake? But there is a slight chance. We asked the soldiers before. Apart from being better at yin and yang dao than us, they didn't seem to know much about Jia Yan. Some people said that Jia Yan was a domain man, mainly equipped to deliberately attract certain enemy assassins to come to the area for assassination. Didn't similar things happen before? As a result, the enemy's assassins almost died on our side. You know, those are several senior territory lord. Leaving one behind will help the battle situation. This year is almost the third year since the war in the Northern Theater began. The protracted war in the Northern Theater did not become as devastating as the enemy expected, as it was one-sided at the beginning. Instead, after the enemy quickly conquered several important passes and areas, it became difficult to control the situation at certain key points. A tug-of-war formed in the region. Even though the enemy army gradually grew stronger, and the two main armies increased their troops, with a total size of more than 2 million troops. They were still resisted by several large regions in the northern region. Precisely because the northern war zone's self-performance was astonishing, the senior officials in the hinterland of the controller's power were stunned and immediately provided a large amount of war material assistance and even dispatched several military command teams. Although they were suspected of seizing command power, it also truly relieved the pressure on the northern theater. To those military experts and a large number of people from the northern forces, the northern hero troops that are most amazing are the troops who practice yin and yang dao, formerly known as the Jiayan troops and now known as the Northern First Army. Today's Jiayan army has begun training on a large scale due to the fact that 3 domain masters have been the main trainers for several times, plus the galaxy-level beings who have practiced Jiayan's yin and yang dao in the past. Therefore, this special army unit began to show a certain geometric expansion. Their number gradually expanded from more than 10,000 to less than 20,000 when Jiayan retreated, to 30,000, 50,000, or 80,000. The final number was fixed at 80,000 people. It was not that no one wanted to join, but that there were too many people joining. There were not that many strong people who were familiar with yin and yang dao to give guidance to the follow-up troops. The 3 domain masters were more. It was difficult to train and lead troops day and night, so 80,000 reached the upper limit of capacity. If it was more, it would not be much more, and if it was less, it would not be less. Don't underestimate the fact that there are only 80,000 people. The combat effectiveness of Jiayan's troops has been verified as early as the year before last. Since the shocking war of 10,000 against 50,000, Jiayan's troops have made another. He participated in the Battle of the Uskar region where 1 against 100 was fought, and assisted the Glacier region in the tenacious resistance battle. Although it failed in the end, after gradually expanding to more numbers, Jiayan's troops have grown from the ability of a local group army has begun to increase to 80,000 troops, which can suppress a large group army of an enemy. Although the 80,000 Jiayan troops are mainly engaged in traveling around to support various battlefields in the northern theater, according to experts, if all 80,000 Jiayan troops are gathered together, it will maybe he can fight against an enemy army of 4 to 5 million people. However, Jiayan's troops also had many follow-up problems, such as the serious decline in the quality of the army, the unique resources for training becoming stretched, and for example, in the northern theater, the top leaders of the major regions began to demand military power from this powerful army. There are also those so-called strong guidance from the hinterland, 1 or 2, shouting for them to command every day, so they are faced with a lot of problems, which also restricts the performance of this terrible force. Moreover, the most uncomfortable problem for the heads of the major regions, as well as the commanders of the domain masters from the hinterland of the master's influence, is that the founder of the Jiayan army, that is, Jiayan himself, is actually in the Jiayan army. After becoming powerful, he started to play the trick of disappearing. There are public rumors that he is practicing and is ready to break through the territory lord. However, many senior leaders of the territory lord do not believe Jiayan's words. They believe that the territory lord will not be able to break through that easily. Besides, who would choose a shaky war zone as the place for his breakthrough? They believe that Jiayan should have escaped from these external pressures. Maybe in the future, Jiayan's troops will become more powerful, and Jiayan will appear as the supreme commander, and then, talk to the higher UPS of the controlling forces, and ask for more rights. In the most serious case, he might block the only pass in the northern region himself, and then declare a certain degree of independence for the northern region. That would be a very big problem. Don't think it's impossible. With the help of Jiayan's troops and such great popularity, as long as more large regional leaders are roped in to assist, there is really a possibility. Of course, the premise is that Jiayan's army must be stronger and become Jiayan's real confidence and backing. In Jiayan's army, many rumors and statements were actually spread by various forces, creating a chaotic atmosphere and countless people talking about it. This is also the reason why Jia Yan's army has become weakened in combat effectiveness. However, no one knows that the various versions of rumors currently circulating in Jia Yan's army, as well as the real reason for Jia Yan's disappearance, are all real slander. The real reason for his disappearance is that he was really in reclusion. Moreover, no one knows where the retreat is, except for some high-level officials in certain regions and the 3 original Guardian Domain Lords. Gurgling gurgling. The training place hidden deep underground is too deep, so the fluctuations and momentum of the training caused here cannot be transmitted to the surface at all. Everyone is wondering why Jia Yan himself has disappeared. If he goes out at this time, no one may be able to recognize him. Because at the moment, he has already turned into a huge cocoon. In other words, half a cocoon. Severe pain spread throughout his body, and Jia Yan felt like he was about to convulse. The pain is natural, but Jia Yan is depressed about another point. In the past, I only had to insist on not being defeated by pain or dying. Now in this situation, I actually have to stay awake at all times to make every molecule, every cell, and every structure. The mutation and evolution process is all under my control, otherwise I will die. What is this called? This is called walking on thin ice. Jia Yan was extremely helpless. He had known for a long time that his breakthrough could be regarded as a success. Under normal circumstances, he would have needed at least several years of thinking before he dared to take action. Now it is not that he cannot take action, but it's a bit hasty, and the current dangers and difficulties are one of the consequences of haste. He had to endure severe pain and carefully control the mutation process. If he had known better, he would have asked a few Guardian Domain Lords to send him to heaven, and then leave the North Superstar and find some other planet to slowly improve. Why would he be in the North Star? Superstars suffer from this. Oh, actually there is a reason, that is, Jia Yan is reluctant to part with so many supplies that he has collected, because he cannot take away such a huge amount of supplies if he leaves in a hurry. Gudu. A condensate that turned into a liquid arm dragged an energy stone into the half-solidified cocoon, and Jia Yan felt a burst of physical and mental pleasure. He no longer even has a body, and even his consciousness has lost its brainwave power. He doesn't understand the reason for his current existence. In short, he is still forcing himself to maintain his thinking to prevent himself from passing out and causing evolution to fail. It feels so good. This piece should be a fire attributed or stained with the blood of the Domain Lord. It is extremely precious, and it was swallowed by me like this. Jia Yan hummed in great relief. But no one could hear it. What he is compiling now is his own heart. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2336. Any living thing needs a strong blood flow center. Even for alien creatures, they will definitely have a similar system, because this is something that living animals must need, otherwise it cannot be explained. Jia Yan is building the most powerful engine out of what his body needs most, his heart. This engine will be what he needs at the Domain Lord level in the future, and can even directly determine whether his promotion is successful. It involves strength, defense, explosion, reaction, etc. Even after reaching the universe, the strong people no longer have so many restrictions on the physical body, but Jia Yan will never miss this point. Brainwave power is the second power system, but the key to the body's power system is the heart. How could he miss it? That is similar to giving up a watermelon to pick up sesame seeds, except that the power of brainwaves cannot be described with sesame seeds. It is about 2 watermelons, so it is equally important. Poof, poof, poof. It went well, but it really hurts. Jia Yan almost fell into a trance, but at this moment, he remembered that some domain master had told him similar things. When I was promoted, I was in a daze. Others seemed to be able to pass out when they were promoted, but I always felt that if I passed out, I would die, so I used a certain method, which was to stimulate my brain stem. However, this kind of stimulation is very unstable. My final stimulation plan is to use brainwave power 3 times a second, maintain it for 5 seconds, then have an interval of 2 seconds, and then 3 times a second, without holding it for 5 seconds, and so on. Jia Yan remembered the experience of this domain lord, and his brainwave power exploded. His mutated body will actually maintain the brain stem for a long time, otherwise Jia Yan would have lost his mind long ago. Puff. 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 3 stimulations per second made his whole body tremble, and he felt that the trance disappeared instantly. It works. Just do it. Sure enough, it is much easier to do things because of previous experience. Jia Yan was so lucky. He was lucky that he had asked so many territory lords. Among so many territory lords, there would always be 1 or 2 that fit his situation, so he learned from the experience. Although no domain lord is an evolved beast, each of them will have their own unique physique. If you ask too many questions and the amount of data is huge, the situation will easily appear like what others have encountered, and the possibility of learning from it will also arise. Even though Jia Yan is an evolved beast and is pursuing the unique promotion path of evolved beasts, in fact, during this promotion, he can still get a lot of information and what he wants from the experience and teachings of other domain lords. As for the erudite knowledge he has learned, it is actually of great help. For example, while he is converting energy, he can even secretly use unique mathematical formulas to calculate how much energy he has consumed and then converted. How much energy, and then judge the energy conversion efficiency of an evolving beast, and then you will immediately understand the approximate number of your future domain master's strength. This is the effect of being knowledgeable and talented. Many things become clear in the chest and extremely calm. Effective. All the things I have learned are effective. Haha, no wonder. In the past, there was a famous saying on earth, knowledge determines destiny. In the past, I relied on a body with no knowledge reserve, and I still cultivated to the peak of the middle level of the galaxy. How lucky I am sure that if I had not supplemented a large amount of knowledge reserves at the peak stage of the intermediate galaxy, my promotion this time would definitely have failed. Even if I already had the title of Territory Lord, it would be useless. Jia Yan silently felt a lot of changes in his body, and at the same time, a lot of knowledge, insights, and mathematical data were flowing in his heart. This made him feel a little pain and a little dazed, but he still did not turn the mutation process into disorder, let alone the sense of resignation that he had in the past when he was promoted. All the passion, impulsiveness, and incomparable self-confidence were all thrown away. To go after. Armed with knowledge and the experience of various territory lords, he became methodical and completely abandoned the possibility of luck. In other words, the path of territory lords seemed to be paved. Huh? The energy is rioting, but it doesn't matter. I calculated this 5,000 seconds ago. The rioting energy this time is due to the accumulation of positive and negative forces. It has reached a certain critical line. I can't panic. Use this power to flush away the body fluid on the other side. Bang. There was a loud noise, and half of the cocoon body was solidified, and half of it was blown apart by the force of the explosion. In the past, this would have been a failure, but Jia Yan was able to take care of himself without any pain or surprise. Because he had known about the surge of positive and negative forces for a long time. By observing the changes in the body, using mathematical formulas, and the experience of previous people, he knew this deeply hidden event in advance. Jia Yan spent 5,000 seconds to extradite it to the current part of his body. In fact, he himself guided the explosion of that half of the body, because the condensate in that part was absorbing a large amount of ore that buffered the power. And it's all useless condensation. It will explode if it explodes. He just needs to fill up this body part before the life force drains away. The biggest crisis this time consumed Jia Yan more time. He spent half a month repairing and improving the integration of this half of his body with the other half, which involved a lot of calculations and mathematical formulas. Plus a lot of previous experience and so on. A blessing in disguise, Jia Yan took advantage of the exploding body parts to not recombine, and directly used some good ideas that he had thought of when condensing the body that he could not change before. In this way, this half of the body became it is more advanced and harmonious than the other half, and through the continuous changes of the body, the benefits of this half will become distributed throughout the body through the flow of molecules, which is equivalent to the improvement of the entire body. He even forgot that he was promoted to the domain lord level. After Qian got on the right track, it became a certain formula. He even had something to do every moment. He was too busy to think about it and forgot about it. Knowing that he was being promoted to territory lord, he was just making constant calculations, and then he was busy making up for certain defects in his body. Such a dizzying process day and night, followed by formulaic mechanical operations in the later stage, until Jia Yan came over in a trance, he found that he had once again completely entered the cocoon state. Ha ha ha, I have finally reached this step. I have completed the evolutionary chrysalis structure like a silkworm cocoon. In the future, I only need to be promoted inside the silkworm chrysalis, which is extremely safe and full of condensate power. This is like entering now that I have a home court where I can do whatever I want. The risk of promotion has become much lower. At this point, I can almost declare my victory. Jia Yan is not too careless. Although the work inside the silkworm chrysalis is no longer so dangerous, this is the time to fine-tune the details of his body. It may even be a key point that determines the strength of his future domain master stage, so he will not relax your vigilance. In short, it is another detailed operation. He has forgotten how long he has been in this safe training place, and he has also forgotten that the outside world is in the midst of a war. The only thing he remembers is that he must be promoted to a territory lord. But just as Jia Yan thought, he was in seclusion here, and the external situation would not slow down and wait for Jia Yan's gradual promotion. In fact, by the time he completely sealed himself inside the cocoon, more than 2 years had passed. In the past 2 years, no one knows where the so-called founder of Jia Yan's army has gone. Many people are even spreading rumors that Jia Yan himself must have been assassinated by the enemy long ago, or that the assassination was successful. Either Jia Yan was seriously injured, otherwise how could he not be seen for so long? But many people are saying that Jia Yan should have entered the seclusion stage after learning that he had the status of a territory lord, hoping to be quickly promoted to territory lord within a few years. But among the private gossip, some people said that Jia Yan was secretly taken to the heart of the master's power. It was because he was afraid that Jia Yan's troops in the northern theater would lose their fighting spirit that they did not tell this news. In short, there is a lot of buzz about Jia Yan, and there are many versions of gossip. Some exaggerations even say that Jia Yan has become the son-in-law of the Master of Power and will soar into the sky in the future. Of course, the big guys are just spreading rumors like this. After all, as Jia Yan's appearance becomes longer and longer, his affairs become less and less noticed. Everyone's attention is focused on the war. In the past 2 years, Jia Yan's troops have almost skyrocketed, becoming the most important key combat capability in the entire northern theater. This is why the masters have continuously issued rewards and improvements in the past 2 years. The reasons for the status and fame of several key commanders of Jia Yan's army. Although the war is still losing ground and retreating steadily, at least in this northern war zone, due to the protection of Jia Yan's troops, the retreat is very slow. Sometimes, the enemy even sacrifices for a small city. At a cost of hundreds of thousands of people, most of the casualties in the entire northern region were lost in this large area. However, the war still started to be a bit pessimistic. The total number of Jia Yan's troops was finally fixed at 80,000. As a result, after the enemy forces in this area were fully expanded to more than 1.5 million, Jia Yan's troops combined with the ordinary troops of varying quality that the region had barely assembled could not make much of a splash, and began to turn into a complete defensive posture. Alas, I finally discovered that our yin and yang dao will be difficult to make progress at this point. That's right, the previous time, we were able to run to Jia Yan's retreat, and then reluctantly move up a little higher. During this period, Jia Yan no longer radiated energy for some unknown reason. What we can learn from is there wasn't much left, so progress stopped. I didn't expect that yin and yang dao still has such restrictions. No, Jia Yan probably didn't teach us the real yin and yang tao. I want to scold this brat, but he is in seclusion now. The three guarding domain masters, namely the pangolin creatures and others, are now aura-enhanced, and their uniforms look like they can't hide their fatigue. Because the enemy has advanced to the area where they train their troops. Jia Yan's army of 80,000 people has been maintaining it with great difficulty. Although the survival rate of this unit is astonishingly high, after fighting for so many years, the soldiers in the entire army have almost changed. Except for some veterans, no matter what level they are, they have developed some kind of self-protection ability. This kind of thing is a treasure. Even those at the heaven level can get the attention of the three major command domain masters. But the decline in quality is a decline, and Jia Yan's troops began to become less magical. There are dense enemy troops right in front of us. We may not be able to hold on. You have to defend it even if you can't, okay. Jia Yan is right here. The pangolin looked somewhere behind him. The three major domain lords led 80,000 Jia Yan troops together, and then looked at the layers of enemy troops in front of them, surrounding the entire capital city of the region. This enemy army numbered 500,000, and the Jia Yan troops in the regional capital, apart from the 80,000 Jia Yan troops, were only 100,000 low-quality miscellaneous troops from the region. This is a very disadvantageous comparison between the two sides. But they couldn't leave, because the three major domain lords were different from others. They knew very clearly that Jia Yan was not assassinated, nor did he go to the hinterland of the master's influence. Instead, he was within this region, but hidden deep underground. If this place is lost, who loses information, or if the enemy checks the brain in the regional city, then they will know the exact location of Jia Yan, and they will surely be happy to take this master's power to the northern theater. The alien visitors who caused such a mess were captured and killed. So they can't retreat or escape. In this war, we are likely to have big problems. Of course, death is unlikely. We have not stood still in the past 2 years, Jia Yan. The joint tactics taught to us have become more and more proficient. Even if the army dies, we can join forces to burst out a combat power that is almost that of a senior domain lord. In this case, even if 3 or 4 senior domain lords come to chase us. Even if you kill, it will be difficult to kill us. The 3 major bodyguards are no longer the kind of little transparent domain lords who are willing to take on the task of protecting the middle-level peak of the galaxy. They are now senior members of the party, and they are almost bosses who can decide the direction of the entire northern war zone. Level person. Even the combat power has become very impressive due to the perfection of Jia Yan's yin and yang dao joint tactics. At least in the case of joint efforts, it is enough to rival the senior domain lord. There had been a battle before. 2 senior domain lords suddenly appeared in the enemy's army. They wanted to get rid of the leaders of the 3 domain lords of Jia Yan's army once and for all. In this way, Jia Yan's army would not attack. Self-destructive. But what people never expected was that these 3 guys from Jia Yan's army actually had the ability to join forces. When the 3 of them joined forces, they unleashed the strength of a senior domain lord. I haven't figured out the chapter yet. There is still 1 chapter left before the domain lord. Text download address. Phone reading.